World Cup 2026 qualifying resumed in the March international window for Asia, Africa, South America, and Oceania, while Europe have finally started their qualifying campaign. And some absolutely insane results happened in this window. Saudi Arabia are still at risk of not qualifying automatically to the World Cup, despite rehiring Hervé Renard, the manager that led the nation to beating Argentina at the World Cup. Back-to-back Asia Cup champions Qatar are also at risk of not qualifying at all, with Kyrgyzstan slowly sneaking up on them in the table, and so are one of the most underrated sides in Asia, Iraq, who have had an extremely underwhelming performance in the March window that puts the World Cup qualification at risk. While on the other hand, teams like Indonesia, who sacked their manager who was doing so well, are still very much in contention of potentially qualifying to the World Cup. It's getting pretty crazy, I know. At the same time in Africa, Nigeria is at risk of missing out on back-to-back World Cups, while underdog nations like DR Congo and South Africa are in decent position of qualifying automatically for the World Cup. Then in South America, Colombia is continuing to slip up in their games, while Paraguay is looking like they might qualify for their first World Cup since 2010. And over to the other side of the world, England have started their World Cup qualifying campaign in hot form, and so have Norway surprisingly. And now in the Oceania region, there is now a confirmed team that will be playing at the World Cup in North America. So as you can see, there have been many crazy results and upsets. And with that, let's take a look at everything that's happened in the March international window regarding the 2026 World Cup qualifiers. Let's start off with the AFC World Cup qualifiers first. And just a reminder on how this qualifying section works, for every group at Asia's World Cup qualifying, the first two places in the group get an automatic ticket to the World Cup, while third and fourth place go to the next round of qualifying, and fifth and sixth place will be eliminated. Had to make sure y'all remember that. Anyway, starting off with Group A at the Asian World Cup qualifiers, we got Qatar, Iran, United Arab Emirates, Uzbekistan, North Korea, and Kyrgyzstan playing for a ticket at the 2026 World Cup. And after the November international window, the table looked like this. Iran were in first place with 16 points, Uzbekistan was in second place with 13 points, then the UAE were in third with 10 points, Qatar were in fourth with 7 points. It hasn't been looking too good for the Qataris. Kyrgyzstan were in fifth with 3 points, and North Korea, a team I've become somewhat of a fan of, is in dead last with 2 points. Now with that out of the way, let's move on to the first game of match day 7, where we had Uzbekistan taking on Kyrgyzstan in Tashkent. And in this battle of the stans, one of them was extremely dominant over the other in this match. And of course it was the Uzbeks. I mean, just look at the stats. In the game, Uzbekistan had a grand total of 26 shots to Kyrgyzstan's 1, and had 9 shots on target to Kyrgyzstan's 0, while also having 74% possession of the ball, which meant that they were in possession of the ball for 3/4 of the game, while also completing around triple more passes than Kyrgyzstan. And there are two wild things about this too. One, Uzbekistan had this crazy good performance on the back of their old manager, Sretko Katanic, stepping down from being the head coach of Uzbekistan due to undisclosed health issues in January 2025. Hope everything's alright with him. And Uzbekistan just hired new manager Timur Kabatse. And two, despite this domination and the fact that Said Datsev on Kyrgyzstan got sent off for a straight red card in the 24th minute, Uzbekistan only managed to score one singular goal, and that was from Kojikbar Olejanov in the 40th minute, who just looks like an absolute baller, I'm not gonna lie. It definitely could have been more goals for Uzbekistan, and honestly it should have been. They had the way better chances, and their superstar up top, Shomurodov, missed a penalty. Credit to the Kyrs goalkeeper, Tokotayev, because he managed to stop some ridiculous shots to keep his country in the match. But man, Uzbekistan is just simply too good. I mean, just look at the way that Faizulayev nutmegged the hell out of this Kyrgyzstan defender. This just shows the gulf in class between the two sides. Overall, Uzbekistan did well to get the 3 points, which could be crucial in their hopes of reaching their first ever World Cup, but they should have definitely bagged more goals in this match. Overall, if you're an Uzbekistan fan, you can't be too mad at this performance. They took care of business and got the result. It's as simple as that. And no, shout out to Man City and Uzbek center back Kusanov for his marriage that happened a couple days before this match. He even got gifted a Mercedes too. That's insane. What the hell? I hope I get a gift like that for my wedding. I just gotta find a girlfriend first. Yeah, that's not happening. Let's now move on to the next match in Group A, where we gotta talk about Iran versus the United Arab Emirates. And I just gotta applaud Iran for a second, because for me, this game showed how good Iran could be. Because the UAE are not a bad side by any stretch of the imagination. They beat Qatar away from home 3-1 earlier in the qualifiers. They beat them in November 5-0 at home. They beat Kyrgyzstan 3-0. And they have one of the best players in Asia World Cup qualifying in Harib Abdullah. The UAE just have so much going on for them. But yet, even with Iran resting Mehdi Taremi for the entire match due to some injury concern, I'm pretty sure, Iran were very effective offensively and defensively, with them scoring and also nullifying UAE's attack. And Iran showed an overall dominant display too. They had 15 shots to UAE's 6, had 8 of them on target, which is more than 50% compared to UAE's 1, and had more of the possession as well. And apart from one chance for the UAE's number 14, Caio Lucas, that was given by a back pass from Iran, and him shaking that shot completely wide, Iran almost had a flawless display in my opinion. Starting off in the 5th minute, how Moebi didn't score from right in front of the net has got me dumbfounded, and how the UAE goalkeeper Asa saved that is just simply ridiculous. But in the 27th minute of added time, yes, you heard me correctly, correctly. This was because there was some lighting failure in the Azadi Sports Complex in Iran, which is apparently already renovated. Don't really know how this floodlight failure would happen then, but whatever. Anyways, the horse lover who left to UAE for money purposes probably, Sardar Azmoun, comes up big for his nation again and gets on the end of a great header and scores to put Iran ahead right before halftime. From then on in the second half, Iran were all over the UAE, but it wouldn't be until the 70th minute where they would double their lead, and it's thanks to Mahebi, who finally scored in this match after gliding past the UAE defender and shooting the ball past the goalkeeper to double the Iran lead, which they would eventually hold on to as they defeat UAE and secure the crucial 3 points. Overall from Iran, man, it was a good display by them, and they were looking good on their journey to qualify for the World Cup. But now let's move on to the last Group A matchday 7 match, where we got Qatar playing my adopted team, North Korea. And listen, the first game between these two sides all the way back in September 2024 was an absolute cracker, where North Korea scoring first, Qatar scoring 2 right before halftime, and then North Korea scoring a screamer to equalize the match and escape against the back-to-back Asian champions with a point. And although I initially felt like maybe North Korea could sneak away with another point to keep their qualification hopes more alive than they are right now, it just didn't go that way whatsoever. Although both teams had the same number of shots, which isn't a surprise, we all know by now North Korea has a good offense, just a terrible defense, and that showed in the game, where North Korea conceding more shots on target and the more goals in the game. This Golazo show all started in the 17th minute, with Qatar taking a corner kick just like they practiced in the training ground, and the ball finds Akram Afif, who obviously scores from the edge of the box to put the Qataris up 1-0. Almost right after, in the 23rd minute, Akram Afif would drop an absolute dime of a pass to Ahmed Al-Ghanaihi, who would easily score past the keeper to double the lead. And wow, what a pass from Akram Afif, man. That was Kevin De Bruyne-esque, Mesut Ozil on Arsenal-esque. Just an absolute peach of a ball. What a top pass from a top player. Moving on to the 34th minute, Qatar would triple their lead thanks to a pretty terrible own goal from North Korea's Yoo Sung Kim. And man, I really hope he doesn't get killed for this, man, because it was just a bad defensive moment. And I didn't mean killed by the media. If you know, you know. Kim Jong-un, please show some mercy. No. Wait. Then onto the 56th minute, Akram Afif drops an absolute dime once again to Ahmed Al-Rawi, who would easily score past the keeper to make it 4-0. And just Akram Afif, wow, what an amazing ball from him again. And then in the 66th minute, Akram Afif's quick free kick would catch North Korea's defense sleeping, and Ahmed Al-Laden would score to make it 5-0. And although Pak Kwang-hoon would get a goal back to ruin Qatar's clean sheet in the 86th minute, it obviously wasn't enough, and Qatar would end up winning this crucial World Cup qualifier 5-1. And we gotta talk about Akram Afif, man, because not only did he carry Qatar to an Asian Cup 1 year ago, even dropping a hat-trick in the final against Jordan, but now with 1 goal and 3 assists on the day, and many more goal contributions beforehand, this dude might carry Qatar to the World Cup. Or will he? Yeah, we'll talk about the next game soon. Regardless, I know we had a stint at Villarreal before, but some of Afif's talent needs to be playing in Europe. This guy's just simply too good. He probably is a top 3 player in Asia right now, no glaze.
Get off that nigga dick, bro. What is you doing?
And North Korea, man, yeah, these guys are definitely not making the World Cup, bro. My dreams of seeing a North Korea versus USA game at the World Cup is now long gone. However, there is one thing I found interesting in the March international window regarding North Korea, and it's where's the star boy Hong Kwang-song? He wasn't participating on the pitch or on the bench for North Korea against Qatar. Please don't tell me this dude went missing again. I might have to make another video about him in a couple years time if that's the case, for real. But now let's talk about matchday 8, where we're gonna start off with the Kyrgyzstan versus Qatar game. And yeah, I know I was just gassing up Qatar and Akram Afif, but in this game, man, these guys were terrible, including Akram Afif. I haven't seen a performance this bad from Afif in forever. But from Qatar, yeah, it's confirmed in my head. Ever since the Asian Cup that they won, these guys have been atrocious. And now in total so far in the 3rd round of qualifying, they've conceded 21 goals in 8 games. That's conceding 2 to 3 goals per game basically. That's awful. And Kyrgyzstan, I mean, these guys were basically dead in the water with qualifying after the last game where they just lost to Uzbekistan. But at home in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan have revived their World Cup qualification hopes against the Asian champs. In the game, they might have not had more of the ball, with Qatar having 55% possession, but they definitely had the better chances with 15 shots and also 5 on target. And this was shown in the result too. Kyrgyzstan were having the better chances in the game, and it felt like it was only a matter of time before they got the goal they wanted. And they did in added time in the first half, with Valery Kichin scoring from a free kick from way downtown to put Kyrgyzstan up 1-0. However, the second half didn't start too well for the Kyrgyz, with Qatar's Lucas Mendes equalizing the game in the 52nd minute. But 3 minutes later, the goal scorer himself would get sent off for a clumsy stunts and challenge on the Kyrgyz attacker. And after this, the ties completely switched to Kyrgyzstan's favor. In the 82nd minute, Alexander Mischenko had a crazy strike from outside the box, and it somehow ended in the back of the net due to some very poor goalkeeping from Qatar's goalkeeper Barsham, who's had a poor qualifying campaign, not gonna lie. And Kyrgyzstan would seal their 3-1 victory over the back-to-back Asian champions in the 90+3rd minute, thanks to a good goal by Alamardon Shukurov. And now, out of nothing and unexpectedly, Kyrgyzstan have hoped to maybe qualify for at least the next round of World Cup qualifying, potentially trying to snatch Qatar's place in that. Things are gonna get real interesting in June. Moving on to the next matchday 8 game in Group A, let's talk about Iran versus Uzbekistan. And listen, if y'all follow Asian football, you guys would know this by now, but every game that happens between these two sides recently just ends up in a draw. And guess what? This game was no different. However, this was definitely one of the more end-to-end entertaining draws, because usually this type of game is a sleeper, but not this one, because actually it was kind of entertaining, especially because Uzbekistan got the lead in this game twice. Despite Iran getting more opportunities early on in the match, Irkanov would actually stun the pro-Iranian crowd in the 16th minute, with them finding lots of space in the box with the ball, somehow, and scoring to put the Uzbeks up 1-0. And after Iran continuously pressuring the Uzbekistan goal, this pressure would finally pay off in the 51st minute thanks to Mehdi Taremi, who is back in the starting 11, who absolutely slammed the ball into the back of the net to equalize passionately for Iran. What a goal from Taremi, man, damn. However, this draw would only last for one singular minute, because in the 53rd minute, Uzbekistan's young star Faizulayev would somehow score this super far out free kick to restore the lead for the Uzbeks. But after a ton of pressure from Iran again, Captain Fantastic Mehdi Taremi saved Iran again in the 83rd minute with his goal, and the game would end 2-2. But more importantly, this point for Iran is now guaranteed them qualification into the 2026 World Cup. So congratulations to all the Iranian fans out there. Y'all deserve this. And for Uzbekistan, I'm sure your guys' time will come soon. Just be patient. But now I think it's time we discuss my adopted team North Korea taking on the United Arab Emirates. And listen, if North Korea won this game, they could have potentially saved themselves from World Cup qualification disqualification. But they didn't do that whatsoever. And that leaves me as a very disappointed man. North Korea got utterly outperformed and dominated, with the UAE having 20 shots at North Korea's 7, with 7 of them on target compared to North Korea's 2, and them having almost 70% possession of the ball. That's crazy. And UAE, although they got a bit lucky to get the result they wanted, secured all 3 points. It started off great for them in the beginning, because literally in just the 5th minute, Harib Abdullah played a beautiful pass into Fabio Lima, who easily tapped the ball in to make it 1-0 UAE. United Arab Emirates will continue to pile on the pressure for the first 30 minutes of the first half, but for the last 15, North Korea started creating chances of their own, and eventually in the 43rd minute, Yusong Kim headed the ball in from a rebound and equalized the game for North Korea. From here on, I fully expected North Korea to go out and attack and try to secure the 3 points to keep them alive in qualification. But nope, for the most part, they just sat back in their box and defended for their lives. And eventually, this defensive wall was broken through in the 90+8th minute thanks to Sultan Adil Al-Amiri, who scored with a great header from close range to secure all 3 points for the UAE and keep their World Cup hopes alive. Well done to the UAE for snatching this game in the last minute, but I'm just disappointed on how North Korea played in this game, man. I just expected more from them is all. Anyways, after all of this, Group A in the March window has now wrapped up. So now let's take a look at the standings. In first place, we have Iran, who have secured automatic qualification to the World Cup with 20 points. Uzbekistan are right behind them in second place with 17 points and are very much in contention of also securing an automatic ticket. The United Arab Emirates keep their dreams alive in third place with 13 points. Qatar are right behind them in fourth place with 10 points. Things just look shaky for them. They're an inconsistent side right now. Kyrgyzstan are in fifth with a chance at the fourth round with 6 points. And North Korea are eliminated from World Cup qualifying sadly, ruining my potential USA versus North Korea dream with them only managing to get 2 points. Disappointed from North Korea, like I said, but we gotta keep moving forward. But anyways, it's now finally time to move on to Asia World Cup qualifying Group B, where we've got the likes of South Korea, Iraq, Oman, Jordan, Palestine, and Kuwait. And after the November international window, the table looked like this. South Korea were in first place with them still being undefeated and having 14 points. Then Iraq were in second place with 11 points. Jordan were in third with also 9 points. Oman were in fourth with 6 points. Kuwait were in fifth with 4 points. And Palestine were in last place in the group with 3 points. And now let's move on to the first game in match day 7 in Group B, where we have South Korea versus Oman. And oh boy, where do I even begin with this one? South Korea, to their standards, were just really poor in this match, man. I understand that they were missing Kim Min-jae, their best center back, and their starting 6, Hwang In-byum, but still, you would expect a better performance from the Koreans. They even started Lee Kang-in from the bench. Like, bro, that doesn't even make any sense. He's probably South Korea's second best player. What the hell? Anyways, although on the stat sheet, South Korea seemed to dominate Oman, having 11 shots to Oman's 5, 1 more shot on target compared to them as well, and a significant amount of possession with them having 64%, South Korea just looked dull and uninspiring. And this is with them already destroying Oman earlier 3-1 away from home, by the way, what just makes this match even more confusing. But anyways, South Korea's first real chance was in the 41st minute from Lee Kang-in. Of course it was. He's a baller. And he would drop a dime to Hwang In-chan, who would bury a shot into the back of the net to put the Koreans up 1-0. But despite South Korea having way more star power than Oman, with top attacking players like Hwang In-chan and of course Heung-min Son, who was par on the day for being serious, they failed to register another goal in the match. And instead in the 80th minute, Heung-min Son makes a sloppy pass out to Oman's Ali Al-Busaidi, who would end up taking a shot at the edge of the box and scoring to equalize the game 1-1, and both teams would end up sharing a point after the 90. But I don't understand how South Korea even allowed this goal to happen. They could have easily made a tactical foul here, and it would have made sense with Lee Kang-in injuring himself and needing assistance. And instead, they conceded, and now Lee Kang-in had to be carried off the pitch and is now out for a minimum of 2 weeks.
Sad.
I break your heart.
Already broken.
Disappointing from South Korea, man, but a good point for the tough and resilient Oman, who are trying to stay within the top 4 of this Group B. We'll see at the end of this whether they will be successful at that or not. But now let's just move on to the next match in Group B, where we gotta talk about Iraq versus Kuwait. And this might have been the best game in Matchday 7 in Asia. And I'm not trolling.
I'm being serious. I'm being serious.
Now, if you just look at the stat sheet for this match, it would paint a false image of how the game actually played out. Because looking at the stats, you can clearly see Iraq being the more dominant side, with them having 18 shots to Kuwait's 4, having 7 shots on target to Kuwait's 2, and having the overwhelming amount of possession with 63%. So if you just look at this, you could probably guesstimate that Iraq won this game maybe 3-0 or 4-0. But you'd be wrong. Oh, so very wrong. Because 1, Iraq only wins their games by 1-goal margins, let's be real. And 2, Iraq didn't end up winning this game at all. In fact, it was really looking like they were going to lose for the first time at home in Basra since forever. Because Kuwait's 34-year-old striker, Yusuf Nasser, was balling out, and so was Kuwait's best player in my eyes, Mohamed Daham. These two almost carried Kuwait to maybe a top 3, if not the greatest victory in the history of the national team. Despite Kuwait conceding chances to Iraq earlier on, as we would expect, Kuwait would have the first deadly chance, which they would take thanks to a wonderful cross at Daham, which would perfectly find the feet of Nasser, who would tap it in to give Kuwait that surprising 1-0 lead. Then in the second half, although Iraq were still pressuring the Kuwait goal, the Kuwaitis would add another one thanks to Nasser, who would be on the end of a great pass, leaving himself wide open to take the shot which he scored from, to double the lead and stun the pro-Iraqi crowd at home. Kuwait were having a field day in Basra and were close to achieving greatness, but sadly for Kuwait, the game had 9 additional minutes. And after the Iraq manager Jesus Casas finally tweaked his tactics to make Iraq super attacking focus for the first time in this qualifying window, I don't know what's taking him so long to do that, instead of just making Iraq play super defensive football all the time, but whatever. Iraq came alive and added time, with Akam Hashim scoring an outrageous volley in the 9+3rd minute to bring one back for Iraq. And wow, what an amazing goal that was from Hashim. Where the hell did that even come from? And after the Kuwaiti goalkeeper Al-Rashidi did everything to try and prevent Iraq from scoring again to give Kuwait the win, his persistence would finally be broken in the 9+11th minute, thanks to Ibrahim Bayesh, who would score on Iraq's last attack to equalize the game and make sure both teams would escape with 1 point from this match. Heartbreaking for Kuwait, man. Even though they knocked out my India in the previous round of qualifying, seeing them being so close to making history and failing at the last second is definitely a hard watch. But that's the way the cookie crumbled. And credit to Iraq for not giving up until the last second. But they just gotta start playing more attacking football, man. They clearly have the talent for it. Jesus Casas, just let them do it, man. Come on. But now let's move on to the last match on Matchday 7 in Group B, where we got Jordan versus Palestine. And honestly, this game went the way that everybody thought it would. Sure, Palestine had more of the shots and the possession in the game, but Jordan had more on target, indicating that they were more clinical in this match, which they were, which is why they were victorious. Early on in the 3rd minute from a corner kick, Yazan Al-Arab would have a very interesting strike and would somehow put the ball into the back of the net to give Jordan the lead. And 8 minutes later in the 11th minute, Abdallah Nasib would get his head on the end of a free kick and would double the lead before it even reached a third of the first half. From here on, we all knew that Jordan was going to win this match no matter how hard Palestine played. And this would prove true, because although Tamer Sayan would get a goal back in the 33rd minute, one of Jordan's star players in Musa Al-Tamari would steal the ball back from a Palestine defender and nicely curl the ball on the ground into the corner of the net to restore Jordan's 2-goal lead. And after a snooze fest of a second half, Jordan would grab all 3 points as they beat Palestine 3-1. Overall, it wasn't the best performance that I've seen from Jordan, but they got the job done and got the W. And frankly, that's all that matters. But now it's finally time to talk about Matchday 8 in these Group B Asian qualifiers. And let's start by talking about South Korea versus Jordan first. And wow, it's another disappointing performance at home for South Korea. What's going wrong with these guys, man? I know Jordan is a good national team, but you just expect better from the Koreans. If we just look at the basic stats too, both South Korea and Jordan had almost the same number of shots, with South Korea just having 1 more, and they both shared the same amount of shots on target. Here's the thing though, South Korea dominated the ball much more with 75% possession, and they had triple the amount of passes that Jordan had. But still, even with South Korea having the majority of the ball, they still failed to penetrate Jordan's defense consistently, and they failed to get the win. Now South Korea did manage to score the first goal of the match thanks to Lee Jae-sung, who found open space to run into from Sonny's corner and bang the ball in to give South Korea the 1-0 lead, but South Korea couldn't hold on to that lead. They really do miss Kim Min-jae, because in the 30th minute, Al-Mardi gets a little lucky with his shot being deflected, but the ball goes in and the game is back equal again 1-1. Now South Korea would still have a ton of good opportunities in the first and also the second half. I mean, one of the Jordanian defenders got mixed up so hard that he fell to the floor and had to fake an injury, but even with these opportunities, South Korea just couldn't score again, and they failed to get a single win in this March window as they drew to Jordan 1-1. Disappointing stuff from South Korea. I still expect them to qualify, but they just have to perform better than this. Come on now. On to the next match, let's talk about Kuwait versus Oman next. And Kuwait, man, I just feel bad for these guys, because they've been very unlucky in this March window, and this singular window might have ruined their chances of qualifying to the World Cup. Despite Kuwait having more chances than Oman in this match, they failed to be clinical enough, with them only having 1 shot out of 9 on target. Well, although Oman only had 2 on target, at least they made it count, thanks to Issam Al-Sabi in the 56th minute, who scored a crucial goal for Oman away from home in the World Cup qualifying aspirations, and Oman went on to win this game 1-0 away from home to get a massive 3 points. Tough luck for Kuwait, but Oman somehow did the job and got the win that they desperately wanted. On to the last match of Group B, let's talk about Palestine versus Iraq. And wow, this game was certainly full of surprises. Because although Palestine were the home side, even though they were playing in a neutral venue in Jordan for obvious reasons, you still would expect a team like Iraq to have more backbone and win this game. Palestine have not won a single game in qualifying thus far. They shouldn't even have a chance against a team who's trying to get an automatic ticket to the World Cup. But guess what? Palestine were the better team in this match. And this showed on the stat sheet and the scoreboard. Palestine had more shots than Iraq with them having 15. They also had more shots on target with them having 5. And they also had more possession of the ball with 55%. Sure, Iraq had the better chances in the first 30 minutes and even got the lead through their usual goal scorer, Ayman Hussein, the captain, scoring in the 34th minute from a header. Other than that, Iraq didn't look too great. In fact, in the second half, Palestine looked like the much better team and they were having the better chances. And they even got a late equalizer in the game thanks to their star striker, Wessam Abu Ali, the Al-Ali forward, who scored from a header late into the game and celebrated by taking off his shirt. But what he and the rest of Palestine failed to realize is that the game wasn't over yet and more madness was yet to come. That's because in the 90+7th minute, Amin Mahajna gets his head on the end of a corner kick and somehow scores miraculously to take a 2-1 lead in the match for Palestine, and they would hold on to the lead until the full-time whistle, meaning Palestine have just gotten their first 3 points of the campaign to keep them alive in World Cup 2026 qualification. What a story for Palestine. Through all the hardship, they're still alive and are in contention of maybe playing at their first ever World Cup. Just scenes, man. I really hope they do somehow make it. While Iraq, man, they really need to sack their manager, Jesus Casas. He is not it. I've already complained about him enough. He might be sacked by the time you're seeing this video, but if he isn't, Iraq are in deep trouble in my opinion. But now with all of that being said, let's take a look at how the Group B standings look like after this March international window. In first place, we still have South Korea, who underperformed these past couple of games with 16 points. Then we got Jordan in second place with 13 points. Iraq are right behind them in third place, even though they could have been in front of them with 12 points. Oman are in fourth with 10 points. Palestine are still alive with 6 points in fifth place. And Kuwait are in last place with 5 points. It's looking tough for them. Now enough of this Group B talk. Let's now finally go to my personal favorite group in Asian qualifying, Group C, which is always pretty entertaining, so grab some popcorn. You're gonna want some for this. In this group, we got the likes of Japan, Australia, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, China, and Indonesia. And after the November international window, the table looked like this. Japan were in first place with 16 points, remaining undefeated. Australia were in second somehow with 7 points. Then Indonesia were surprisingly in third with 6 points. Then Saudi Arabia was in fourth with also 6 points. They just have less goals forwarded. Then Bahrain was in fifth right behind them with also 6 points, just a lower goal difference. And China were in last with also 6 points, despite being the only country other than Japan to have 2 or more wins. And that's because they have a terrible goal difference of -10, which is why they were still in last. So with this group being so exciting and close, let's just jump in right away and talk about the Australia versus Indonesia match first. And wow, this game did not go the way I was expecting at all. You see, Indonesia were actually looking like they had a decent chance of qualifying for the 2026 World Cup, with them actually defeating Saudi Arabia at home in surprising fashion, winning 2-0 under manager Shin Tae-yong. But here's the thing since then, the Indonesian FA actually sacked Shin Tae-yong, who was doing a great job, and hired ex-Dutch footballer Patrick Kluivert to take over instead. Now the FA decided that they needed stronger leadership if they wanted to make the World Cup, but I think they just wanted a Dutch manager who could speak Dutch to the Dutch-speaking players on Indonesia's team rather than a South Korean manager who knows no Dutch whatsoever. Shameful, shameful stuff. And the first match under Kluivert's reign has not gone according to plan either. Maybe that's karma. But in the match, sure, Indonesia looked better in possession with them having 61%, and they also had the more shots in the game with 11, but Australia were more clinical with them having 7 shots on target, and that was reflected in the scoreline. And even though most of the goals Australia scored in the game were hideous and ugly goals, listen, they all count the same. Now the surprising thing is, Indonesia started this game way better and were knocking on the door for a goal. They even got a penalty in the 8th minute, but Kevin Dix, the Dutch-born footballer playing in Copenhagen, hit the post from the spot and failed to go ahead from this golden opportunity. And that's rough, because maybe if Indonesia scores, we're all looking at Kluivert and this Indonesian team very differently, and maybe we would be talking about them more positively right now. But no, because after this penalty, Indonesia capitulated badly. First in the 18th minute, Australia were awarded a penalty, and Martin Boyle converted it coolly to give the Aussies a 1-0 lead. Then 2 minutes later in the 20th minute, the ethnically Sri Lankan Nishan Velupillay was through on a 1-on-1 and just lobbed the keeper to give the Aussies a 2-0 advantage. And personally for me, you just love to see this. A South Asian man scoring a goal on the international stage, just great stuff, man. Then in the 34th minute, one of the most known Australian players right now, Jackson Irvine, gets on the end of his own rebound and shot and scores to triple the lead for Australia. Moving on to the second half, Lewis Miller was wide open from a corner kick in the 61st minute and headed the ball in to make it 4-0 Australia. And although Ola Ramani, who was making his Indonesia debut, scored a good goal in the 70th minute, he was probably one of the only bright spots for Indonesia in this game, so credit to him. Jackson Irvine would get his brace in the 90th minute as Australia went on to win this 5-1. And it was a great result for Australia, who have been pretty underwhelming for the majority of the third round of qualifying. While it was a horrific start for Patrick Kluivert in his managerial career with Indonesia. And want to know what makes this even wilder? Shin Tae-yong was watching the match in Jakarta with fans. Nah man, the Indonesian FA did this guy so dirty. I'm hikey pissed about the way they treated him, I'm not gonna lie. But anyways, let's just move on to the next match before my blood boils even more. And let's talk about Japan versus Bahrain, which was happening in Saitama, Japan. I mean, this game went the way everybody thought it would, towards Japan's favor obviously. If you look at the stat sheet, Japan really was superior in every department, especially with the shots, with them having 12 to Bahrain 7, with 4 of them being on target compared to Bahrain's 2. And Japan had the overwhelming amount of possession with 61%. But actually in the first half, I was actually kind of more impressed with Bahrain than Japan, because they somehow found a way to keep Japan from scoring for the entire first 45 minutes. And they even created chances for themselves. But when Japan made those 2 substitutions, getting both Daichi Kamada and Junya Ito on the field, it was game over from them pretty much. And the fact that Japan could bring players of that quality off the bench just shows the different levels of class that Japan has compared to the rest of the Asian teams. These guys are a level above the rest, and it's not funny anymore. But anyways, in the 66th minute, literally 3 minutes after the substitutions, the Japanese Messi, some say, Takefusa Kubo, lays off a brilliant pass to Daichi Kamada, who finishes it first time into the back of the net to give Japan that 1-0 lead they desperately wanted. And since this goal from Kamada, Bahrain didn't have any chance of getting anything from this game. And they didn't, because then in the 87th minute, Takefusa Kubo beats the Bahrain goalkeeper somehow at his near post and scores to double the lead for Japan, and eventually helps bring the Japanese a 2-0 victory over the Bahrainis. And actually, fun fact with this result, Japan became the first team that weren't automatically qualified already for being host to qualify for the 2026 World Cup, meaning Japan have qualified for their 8th straight World Cup, even though there's still a few games left in the 3rd round of Asian World Cup qualifying. Wow, like I said, Japan is on a completely different level compared to the other national teams in Asia, especially in Group C. Japan dog-walked the group and have 100% qualified for the World Cup. Fair play to them. And like I said on Twitter, I'm actually following my one-time switch from the United States to Japan. I'm actually 3% Japanese if you guys didn't know that. So yeah, let's go Japan. Yeah, let's go, man. But anyways, let's move on to the last game of match day 7 in Group C, where we got Saudi Arabia versus China. And wow, this game was certainly interesting. For me, before this game, this was a must-win match for Saudi Arabia and Hervé Renard, because I feel like if they didn't win this game, their World Cup host would definitely be in jeopardy. And so would Hervé Renard's shot. But it seems like in the end, Saudi Arabia pulled through when it mattered the most, and they dominated the match completely on the stat sheet. Saudi Arabia had 19 shots total to China's 4, with 7 of them being on target to China's 0. Yeah, China literally created absolutely nothing in this match. They had nothing going offensively, and Saudi Arabia had 80% possession of the ball as well. I don't think I've seen any team have that much possession for the entire 90 minutes in my life until this game. Also, just look at the passes. 743 to China's 187. That's crazy. Saudi Arabia passed 4 times more than China. Wow. So with that, you must be thinking that Saudi Arabia must have scored like 4 goals against China, right? Nope, you're wrong. Because although Saudi Arabia had a majority of the chances, and a lot of them being really good chances, and even with China getting a red card from Lin Langming, I don't really know what he was thinking there, Saudi Arabia only managed to score 1 goal in this match. And of course, it had to be their captain, number 10 Salim Al-Dawsari, who finally scored in the 3rd round of qualifying after disappointing for a majority of it. And Saudi would end up getting the 3 points due to this 1-0 win. Saudi Arabia desperately needed this win, and they got it. While China, yeah.
It's not looking good, bruv. It's not looking good.
Moving on to match day 8 in Group C, let's talk about the first match, which was Japan versus Saudi Arabia. And let's be honest, with Japan already qualifying to the World Cup and rotating their lineup, I didn't really expect too much out of them in this game. But even with that, Japan still had 12 shots compared to Saudi Arabia's 1, with 2 of them being on target compared to Saudi's 0, while also having 78% possession of the ball. I honestly expected more from Saudi Arabia here, although I understand how difficult it is to play against Japan in Japan. Regardless, the game ended 0-0, and both teams shared a point. Saudi will easily take that, and Japan probably didn't care too much about the game either. But yeah, that's kind of it about this game. So let's move on to the next match in Group C, where we gotta talk about China playing Australia at home. And man, I really didn't know what to expect in this match. Australia were just coming off that 5-1 win over Indonesia, while China really needed to bounce back and try to get a win at home to at least try and secure a spot in the next round. But sadly for China, even in a packed out stadium with their own fans, they failed to do the job. China might have had the more shots, but they only managed to get 1 on target, which is just crazy. With Wu Lei out still, it just seems like China just lost all clinicalness, and that's cost them in this March window of qualifying. And Australia made China pay for not being clinical enough. First through Jackson Irvine, who got a bit lucky getting past a couple of Chinese defenders, but nevertheless, he scored in the 60th minute to put the Aussies up 1-0 away from home. And then in the 29th minute, one of my favorite brown boys in the sport, Volupele, struck the ball into the Chinese goalkeeper's hands, and he had a curious moment and let the ball go in, and Australia doubled the lead. Then in the second half, there wasn't really too much going on, and Australia would eventually win this game 2-0 away from home and put them in a good spot for qualifying. Well done to Australia for having a 6-point window, but man, those jerseys are hideous. I'm not a fan of these whatsoever. But now let's talk about the final game of Group C, where we got Indonesia versus Bahrain. And this was a game that I was keeping my eye on, because Indonesia desperately needed to bounce back if they wanted to keep their qualifying hopes alive, while Bahrain has typically had pretty good away performances in qualifying so far. So this game was kind of like a 50-50 in my eyes. And honestly, it kind of still was. Both teams had the same number of shots with 7, Indonesia just had a couple more on target, and although the possession was more towards Bahrain's favor, it didn't really matter in the end, because Bahrain failed to use that possession to their advantage. In the game, Indonesia were initially having the better chances, and they would make it count in the 24th minute thanks to a great ball from Marcelino Oceania who found Romney. This winner was debuted for Indonesia, and he scored his second goal in his second game for his country as Indonesia went up 1-0. Then although in the second half Bahrain was starting to get some better chances, Indonesia would have some of their own too, but neither side was clinical enough to score another goal in the match. So at the end of the game, Indonesia would secure a massive 3 points in their goal of making the World Cup as they beat Bahrain 1-0. Patrick Kluivert's first win in his second game in charge against Bahrain. Was that being too harsh on him earlier? Maybe, but only time will tell whether this gamble will pay off. But now with everything that's happened, let's take a look at the Group C table. In first place, we have Japan, who have already qualified now with 20 points. Then Australia are in second place with 13 points. They're in a good spot now. Saudi Arabia are in third place with 10 points. They're still fighting for an automatic ticket. Indonesia, though, are right behind them in fourth place with 9 points. Bahrain are now behind Indonesia in fifth place with 6 points. That loss to them is going to hurt. And China are still in last place with 6 points. But that's because of their terrible goal difference of -19. I'm still very intrigued on how this group is going to look like at the end, because other than Japan, there's still all to play for. And I'm specifically interested on whether Indonesia can pull off this World Cup qualification or not. We'll see. Now I think it's finally time we move on from Asia and go to the African World Cup qualifiers, because it's been a long time since these games have taken place. In fact, it's been almost a year since we've had African World Cup qualifiers. Literally since the first World Cup qualifying video that I made that kickstarted this whole series. And not gonna lie, man, I've missed African football. It's always just pure chaos and entertainment with this region. Anyways, to give a quick rundown on how this qualifying section works again, in order to qualify, you have to top the group that you're currently in. And if you're one of the best 4 second place countries, you get thrown into another group with all the other second place teams. And the team that comes out on top of that group will be sent to the Interconfederation playoffs. So in summary, try to get first place in your original group or you're cooked. Now starting off with Group A of these qualifiers, we've got Egypt, Guinea-Bissau, Burkina Faso, Sierra Leone, Ethiopia, and Djibouti. And after the last international window back in June 2024 that contained the African World Cup qualifiers, the table looked like this. Egypt were first place in the group after 4 matches with 10 points, remaining undefeated, while in second place we had Guinea-Bissau, who was also an undefeated team with 6 points. Then in third, some might say surprisingly, we had Burkina Faso with 5 points. Then in fourth, we've got Sierra Leone with also 5 points, just a lower goal difference. Ethiopia were in fifth place with 3 points. And then in the last place, we have Djibouti in 6th place with 1 point. That out of the way, let's move on to the first game of matchday 5, where we've got Sierra Leone versus Guinea-Bissau taking place in Liberia. At Guinea-Bissau, for a team that was looking so promising and in contention of a potential spot in the next round of African qualifying, they were really disappointing in this game. And all in all, Sierra Leone were the better team, and they showed that in the match. It all started in the 19th minute, with Mustafa Bundu pouncing on a bad back pass from Guinea-Bissau and scoring to put his country in the lead. Then in the 61st minute, Guinea-Bissau makes another defensive mistake in the back, and Musa Noah Kamara, no, not the legend Kai Kamara, although he actually still plays for Sierra Leone despite being 40 years old. He wears the number 10 for them too, that's crazy. But anyways, Musa Noah Kamara pounces and scores to put Sierra Leone up ahead 2-0. Then in the 68th minute, a substitute in the game, Tambla Uleses Folgado Montero, would pull one back for Guinea-Bissau after a great long shot. But in the 90+6 minute, Ibrahim Toure would pounce on a good pass and score to make sure Sierra Leone left this game with a 3-1 victory to reignite their World Cup aspirations. Well done to Sierra Leone for getting the 3 points. But like I said, a disappointing display from Guinea-Bissau. Moving on to the next match in CAF qualifying Group A, let's talk about Burkina Faso versus Djibouti taking place in Morocco. And with all due respect to Djibouti, they never stood a chance against the talented African side of Burkina Faso, let's be serious. And Burkina Faso would end up running up the score against them, winning 4-1. And it's nice to see recognizable players in Europe like Ajax's Bertrand Traore and also Shakhtar's Lassina Traore getting on the score sheet as well. But now let's talk about the final matchday 5 game in Group A, where we got Ethiopia versus Egypt taking place in Casablanca. And Egypt were running away with this group initially and seemed well on their way to World Cup qualifying. And respectfully to Ethiopia, although I heard their food slaps, I gotta try sometime, these guys never stood a chance against Egypt, even though they were playing at home. And Egypt would do what they do best recently in qualifying, and that's win their games. In the 31st minute, Mo Salah would receive a great ball that would put him on a 1-on-1 situation, and of course, the great Egyptian king is gonna miss chances like that, and he put his nation up 1-0. Mo Salah was cooking in this game, man. He was mixing up these Ethiopian defenders like they weren't even there. But anyways, then in the 40th minute, Mo Salah would get an assist after playing a great back pass to Zizou, who would finish it superbly into the back of the net to make it 2-0 to Egypt. And despite getting more good chances in the second half, Egypt failed to score, and they would only win this match 2-0. But listen, 3 points is 3 points, and Egypt will take that all day in their quest of trying to qualify for the 2026 World Cup. Anyways, it's now time that we can finally talk about matchday 6 in CAF Group A qualifiers. And we're gonna start with Guinea-Bissau versus Burkina Faso. Now Guinea-Bissau aren't even a bad side, so even though they are worse than Burkina Faso on paper, they were playing at home, so I still kind of expected them to snatch a result, but I should have known better, because they failed at that aspect completely. They conceded early in the 2nd minute due to a good shot from Burkina Faso's Lassina Traore, Traore before Guinea-Bissau's Zidane Bajaki scored in the 36th minute by running behind the Burkina Faso defense and having a great touch on the ball before shooting a score and equalized the game. But although Guinea-Bissau had a moment of magic, it wasn't enough to get any points in this match, because in the 73rd minute, Traore once again scores, this time from a header, to restore the lead for Burkina Faso and eventually escape away with 3 points due to their 2-1 victory. Yeah, Guinea-Bissau going 0 for 6 points in this qualifying window, not good whatsoever. While Burkina Faso should be very pleased with how their games went this March. Then over to the next match, we had Ethiopia versus Djibouti. And as I insinuated before, Djibouti are the punching bag of this group, even if they're facing Ethiopia. I guess you could say Djibouti are booty at football. See what I did there? See what I did there, huh?
Man, shut your bitch ass.
Alright, my fault. That's a bad joke. But anyways, we keep moving forward. And talking about this game, yeah, Ethiopia ran up the score. And even though Djibouti scored 1 goal in the 51st minute, thanks to Akim Binu, Desta and Nasir on Ethiopia each scored a hat-trick in this game. And Ethiopia ended up winning this one away from 7-1. Brazil fans would have hated that. Now on to the last game of matchday 6 in Group A, we got Egypt versus Sierra Leone. This was a good match between these two sides, with both fighting for a spot at the World Cup. Although Egypt are definitely running away in the group here. But regardless, Egypt won this game 1-0, thanks to Ziza once again scoring in back-to-back games. This time at added time in the first half, and Egypt ended up beating Sierra Leone 1-0. However, the most important thing in this match happened after the game, and that's because every Sierra Leone player was lining up to take a selfie with Mohamed Salah. And shit, I don't really blame them. I'd want to take a selfie with the Egyptian king too. But anyways, with 2 match days wrapped up in Group A, let's take a look at how the standings are looking like after March. In first place, we still have Egypt with 16 points. Like I said, they're running away with it now. Then in second place, we got Burkina Faso with 11 points. Yeah, they're probably the second best team in the group, let's be honest. Then in third place, we got Sierra Leone with 8 points, deserved. Ethiopia are in fourth with 6 points. Guinea-Bissau had a terrible window, and this is reflected in the standings with them being 5th place with also 6 points, just a lower goal difference. And Djibouti are obviously last with 1 point and a negative 16 goal difference. Glad to see that at least football fans will probably be watching Salah play in another World Cup. Oh, you just love to see. Moving on to Group B of these qualifiers, we've got Senegal, DR Congo, Togo, Sudan, Mauritania, and South Sudan. And this group has been anything but normal up to this point. I mean, you can just tell that from the teams in this group. How the hell Sudan and South Sudan got in the same group despite all their beef outside the football pitch is crazy to me, but I digress. Anyway, after the last international window back in June, the table looked like this. Sudan were currently in first place, surprising I know, with 10 points, and were undefeated. Then in second place, we had a recent AFCON champion from a few years back with Senegal, 8 points. Then in third place was a semi-finalist in the recent AFCON, DR Congo with 7 points. Togo falls behind them in fourth place with 3 points. South Sudan was in fifth place with 2 points. And below par, Mauritania was in dead last with 1 point. Now that we got that out of the way, let's move on to the first game of matchday 5, where we got DR Congo versus South Sudan. Now regardless of how mid this match was, seriously, it was pretty boring. The DR Congo fans showed up in style and in numbers in Kinshasa. Love to see it. I love the African fans, man, they're always just a vibe. Eventually, after DR Congo got a couple of good opportunities in the first half from some of their best players, like the number 14 Moswaku and also Wissa, the fans would have something to celebrate in this match, with the number 10 Theo Bongonda having a great strike from right outside the box to give the lead to the Democratic Republic of Congo. And although you would expect DR Congo to probably grab a couple more goals against a substandard South Sudan side, they failed to increase their lead. But they got the 3 points nevertheless, as they won this match 1-0. I expected slightly more from DR Congo, but listen, 3 points to 3 points, you can't really complain too much. On to the next match we go, and let's talk about Togo versus Mauritania. And this match was certainly something to say the least. Listen, I fully expected Togo to get the 3 points, especially with them in a slim position to secure a World Cup qualification berth. Although very difficult, don't get it twisted. And also the fact that they're playing at home against the last place side in this group, Mauritania. But this game was anything but easy for Togo, and they failed to capitalize. Now Togo would get an early lead in this match thanks to a header from Tibak Kilije in the 4th minute, but Mauritania would start to get back in the game, with the number 7 Koita hitting the post, and then in the 52nd minute, Koita would actually be the one to equalize the game for Mauritania with this great finish on the edge of the box. But then 3 minutes later, the most surprising thing would happen, and that's Mauritania's Abdali Mahmoud scoring in the 55th minute to give the rare lead to Mauritania away from home. The Mauritanian fans must have been in dreamland when this goal went in. But then in the 69th minute, Togo star striker Kevin Denke, the ex-Cercle Bruges and now FC Cincinnati man, steals the ball from a Mauritanian defender and scores to equalize the game back up for Togo. However, Togo failed to get another goal in this match, and the game would end 2-2. Disappointing on Togo's end not to get the win, but it was a pretty entertaining game, so I can't really complain to be honest.
Life like this sure is sweet, huh?
It definitely is.
But now let's talk about the biggest game in matchday 5 in Group B, where we had Sudan taking on Senegal in a neutral venue in Libya, since obviously with everything going on in Sudan, the games cannot take place there. For crying out loud, there's literally a couple of Sudanese clubs playing league football in Mauritania to avoid this civil war and make sure their players can maybe secure a World Cup spot. And let me tell y'all, after this match, the Sudanese fans and players were definitely starting to dream a little bit more. You see, Senegal are going through some changes right now, with Aliou Cisse being dismissed from his position as Senegal coach, despite doing a lot for them like winning an African Cup and helping them progress to the knockout stages at the 2022 World Cup, despite not having Sadio Mane. And fun fact, he's actually coaching Libya right now. That's pretty interesting. And now with the new manager, Papatao at the helm, Senegal are in a lot of pressure to perform. In this game against Sudan, Senegal failed to get what they wanted, and that's the 3 points away from home. And I ain't gonna lie, y'all, Senegal didn't deserve those points, but Sudan did. They had the better chances in this match. In the 20th minute, Sudan's number 20 Asa had a great one-on-one chance, but he fluffed his lines and shanked his shot wide. That was a golden opportunity. Then in the 49th minute, Terry had a great shot on goal at Edouard Mendy, and even had a chance of scoring the rebound, but unluckily it went out. Now Senegal also did have opportunities in this game, don't get me wrong, like Sadio Mane having a bicycle kick right in front of goal, but somehow missing the target completely, or Sadio Mane completely missing his chip in the 80th minute, and his rebound and shot getting cleared off the line. Senegal are still relying on Sadio Mane way past his prime in 2025. Nah, these guys might be cooked.
Leave the football before the football leaves you.
Now Sudan could have stolen it late too. From a golden chance in front of goal, Sudan's Keder missed the target completely, and the game ended in a 0-0 stalemate. Now Sudan getting a draw against Senegal without context is an incredible result, don't get me wrong, but the fact that they could have won this game and gotten a huge 3 points in their hopes of securing automatic qualification to the World Cup would have just been so much better. But listen, Sudan are still in a good position, but they still do have to play Senegal and DR Congo away, so they need to stay locked in for real. However, it's now time to talk about match day 6, where we're going to start off with Sudan versus South Sudan. Oh baby, the Sudanese derby. This is a game I've been waiting for. I bet South Sudan are pissed seeing Sudan doing well in these qualifiers. I just know they were trying to do everything in their power to make sure that Sudan doesn't leave this game with all 3 points. And guess what? South Sudan did a pretty good job at that. Now Sudan was a team that was having the plethora of opportunities in this game, and they were also having some really good ones that just somehow didn't go to the back of the net in both halves as well. Sudan were just really unlucky, but eventually in the 76th minute, Sudan's pressure would pay off thanks to Asa, who got on the end of a rebound with the header and scored and took off his shirt and celebrated. But sadly, South Sudan's first real chance in the 90+8th minute, they scored due to Sebit scoring a bicycle kick after a goalkeeping mistake, and he also takes off his shirt and celebrates. And the game would end 1-1 after this crazy drama. This is a real bad sell from Sudan, man. And I think these drop points to their rivals might cost them a spot at the World Cup. It's still early days, but it's just not what I was expecting. Stay strong though, Sudan. On to the next match we go, and we got Senegal versus Togo. And let's be real, although Senegal are under a new manager right now, and they didn't do too well in the first game, they're playing Togo, man. A team that they should easily be beating. And that's what they did. Thanks to Papa Matar Sarr, the young time star, who scored in the 35th minute, and then due to an own goal from Bouma in the 67th minute. With that, Senegal won 2-0 as expected. Not really too much to talk about here, but now Senegal gets their qualifying campaign back on track with this one. But now it's time to talk about Mauritania versus DR Congo. Now Mauritania aren't the best team, but they're definitely a threat at home, just like multiple African sides, especially for a DR Congo side that didn't play too well in the first game in March, despite getting 3 points. But DR Congo are on a mission in this group, and that's to make it to the World Cup, and they did the job in this game. It all started in the 3rd minute, with Wissa skilling his way past the Mauritanian defenders until Charles Pickle takes the ball from him and shoots and scores somehow, long range, and puts DR Congo up early. If DR Congo didn't get this early lead, this game would have definitely been a lot more tricky, but luckily for them, they got it. Mauritania would then pile a ton of pressure on DR Congo, having good chances both in the first and second half, but Fiston Mayele would put the game to bed in the 83rd minute from his good strike to make sure DR Congo escapes Mauritania with all 3 points after their 2-0 victory over them. And now it's time to look at the Group B standings after March. We have a new first place team with DR Congo actually being there with 13 points. They're looking pretty good on their quest to the World Cup. Then Senegal are in 2nd place with 12 points. Sudan are now right behind them in 3rd place, just lower by 1 goal difference. They're still in the running. Then the teams we all could safely assume are out by now are Togo in 4th with 4 points, South Sudan in 5th with 3 points, and Mauritania in dead last with 2 points. The battle at the top with those 3 teams are going to be very interesting. Definitely want to keep an eye on that for future international windows. Now moving on to Group C of these qualifiers, we've got Nigeria, South Africa, Benin, Zimbabwe, Rwanda, and Lesotho. After the last international window with these qualifiers, the Group C table was looking crazy. In 1st place before this March window, we had Rwanda with 7 points. How the hell is Rwanda 1st place? What the heck? In 2nd place, we had South Africa with also 7 points, just had 1 lower goal difference than Rwanda. Then we had Benin, who also had 7 points with also a +1 goal difference. They just had less goals forwarded. Then in 4th, we had Lesotho with 5 points, respect to them. Then in 5th, we actually had the Giants Nigeria with 3 points. You know, the same Nigeria that's qualified for 6 out of the last 8 World Cups. Recently made the AFCON final where they did lose to eventual champions and host Ivory Coast 2-1. And the same Nigeria that has the African Footballer of the Year, Ademola Lookman, with other top ballers like Ola Aina, Alex Iwobi, Victor Osimhen, etc. And then in 6th place, we just had Zimbabwe just chilling with 2 points and a -4 goal difference. So yeah, to say that this group was looking crazy is an understatement. This group would make much more sense if you just flip the table upside down, I'm not gonna lie. But anyways, let's go over to the first game of match day 5, where we have Zimbabwe versus Benin. And where do I start with this one? Benin. What are y'all doing over there, man? These guys were in a good position to qualify for the 2026 World Cup, and they had to play the last place team in the group in Zimbabwe. Not only that, Benin had a 2-goal lead in this match, thanks to Mooney, who scored in the 12th minute off a bad goalkeeping mistake from Zimbabwe, and then Doku scoring in the 35th minute after some beautiful football to bring that 2-goal advantage to their country. But shockingly, Benin were caught sleeping defensively, and Zimbabwe's Munetsi was scored right before halftime in the 44th minute to bring 1 goal back. And then Musona was scored in the 59th minute after catching Benin sleeping again, and Zimbabwe would equalize the game 2-2, and both countries would leave this match with a point. Really good comeback fight from Zimbabwe, man. If you're a Benin player or fan, you'd be punching yourself right now, because allowing a 2-goal comeback from the initial last place team in your group while you're fighting for a potential World Cup spot, simply unacceptable. But enough about that match. Let's now go over to South Africa versus Lesotho. Now this game was interesting just from a geographic perspective, because Lesotho is actually a country that's surrounded by South Africa on all sides. So I feel like this is kind of like an international derby, if you will. And sadly for Lesotho, I mean, they really stood no chance against the only ever African host in FIFA World Cup history. Now in the first half, South Africa would have a couple of decent opportunities, but they would fail to make them count, as Lesotho would keep the clean sheet for the first 45 minutes. But then in the second half, despite Lesotho doing everything to keep South Africa from scoring, the South Africans were simply just too good, and eventually they would make Lesotho pay. First from the Orlando Pirates attacker, Mofokeng in the 16th minute after a great run from the right midfielder Makwana, who had an excellent game, and what a top dancing celebration too. And then 4 minutes later in the 64th minute, Jaden Adams would get on the end of his own rebound and score to make it 2-0 South Africa and help them secure all 3 points in their hopes of qualifying to their 4th World Cup. Now let's talk about the final game of matchday 5 in Group C, where we got the top of the table at the moment, Rwanda, taking on an underperforming Nigeria. And although Nigeria were playing away in Kigali, which is in Rwanda, it was actually a pretty good performance from the Nigerians, and a good managerial debut from Eric Shell, the former manager of Mali. Now the key difference in this Nigeria team from the game against Rwanda compared to the games before is now they've got Victor Osimhen, who is still one of the best strikers in the world despite him being on loan this season for Galatasaray, and he proved that in this match, with him scoring in the 11th minute after a great free kick from Lookman, and then once again in the 45th plus 3rd minute after getting by a Rwandan defender, and then beautifully chips over the Rwandan goalkeeper, acquired that 2-0 lead for Nigeria, a lead that they would keep for the entire 90, securing them 3 points. Great performance from Osimhen, and a great performance from Nigeria to get the win they desperately needed if they wanted to make the 2026 World Cup. Anyways, it's now finally time to talk about matchday 6 in Group C. And how about we start with Benin versus South Africa? This right here was a good game, because although Benin didn't perform the best in the first March game, they're still a rather good side, while South Africa are definitely one of the top 2 sides in the group for sure. This was always going to be an interesting matchup to watch, but there was always going to be one side claiming victory, and we all knew who it was going to be. Benin did well to keep South Africa out of their net in the first half, but the second half, South Africa got the better of them, due to Lyle Foster in the 53rd minute, who had a shot go in barely off the post to put South Africa up 1-0, and then Jaden Adams in the 84th minute, who made it 2-0 to South Africa to secure a huge 3 points away from home in South Africa's chase to qualify for the World Cup. And now let's swiftly move on to Nigeria versus Zimbabwe, a game that I thought was going to be rather comfortable for Nigeria. Now look, Zimbabwe are not a bad team by any stretch of the imagination, but Nigeria are simply better on paper. Plus, they literally had a great result away to Rwanda in the last match, so I thought they would continue this good form in their next game at home, but I was wrong. Although Victor Osimhen put his country up 1-0 from the back post in the 74th minute, of course he did, his 3rd goal in 2 games, Osimhen is just simply one of the best strikers in the world, and Nigeria are lucky he's finally back with the national team. But regardless of all that, they still failed to keep Zimbabwe out of their own net, because in the 90th minute, Tawanda Chirewa cleverly and luckily gets by the Nigerian defense and finishes the chance off smartly to make it 1-1 and help Zimbabwe escape Nigeria with a 1-1 draw and 1 point. These are 2 huge points dropped for Nigeria in their hopes of making the World Cup and trying not to miss back-to-back World Cups. Well, this was a huge point for Zimbabwe on the road. Nigeria, man, what are these guys doing?
What are we doing? What are we doing?
Man, Nigeria was just looking so promising, even having the better chances against Zimbabwe, but yet they failed to get the win. Really disappointing stuff on their end. Now let's talk about the last game in Group C, where we got Rwanda versus Lesotho. And honestly, I fully expected Rwanda to collect all 3 points at home, and it was looking that way with Kwizera scoring in the 58th minute. But somehow, in some way, Lesotho found their way back into the game thanks to Fourth-One in the 82nd minute, and both teams would share a point after that 1-1 draw. I don't know whether it was a deserved draw for either team or not. That's the result for the match, so it is what it is. Now with the Group C games out of the way, let's take a look at how the standings are looking like after March. And first, we now have South Africa with 13 points. They're making decent ground for that automatic qualifying spot for the World Cup. Then Rwanda is in 2nd place with 8 points. Benin is in 3rd with also 8 points, just a lower goal difference. Nigeria are not too far away with them in 4th place and also having 7 points. So don't worry, Nigerians, there's still hope. Just stop dropping games that you should be winning. Lesotho is in 5th with 6 points, and Zimbabwe, although they're a pretty decent side, are in last with 4 points. This is definitely an entertaining group to keep an eye out on though, especially that 2nd place battle. So I can't wait for the future windows. It's now time that we move on to Group D of these qualifiers, where we've got the likes of Cameroon, Cape Verde, Angola, Libya, Mauritius, and Eswatini. And after the last qualifying window, the table looked like this. Cameroon were in 1st place as expected with 8 points and remained undefeated. Libya were actually in 2nd place with 7 points. Cape Verde, one of my favorite teams from the last AFCON for non-football reasons, were in 3rd place with also 7 points, just a lower goal difference. Angola were in 4th place with 6 points. Mauritius were in 5th with 4 points. And Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland, thanks to the comments on the first video pointing that out to me, were in last place with 0 points and a -5 goal difference. And now let's go over to the first game, where we've got Eswatini versus Cameroon. Listen, even though Cameroon were playing away in this match, even though the match was played in a neutral venue in South Africa, Africa, everybody's still expecting Cameroon to get the 3 points. I mean, it's Eswatini, bruh. Everybody's beating them down to get their 3 points. Come on now. But Cameroon was just overall disappointing, even from guys like Mbeumo, Boubacar, Baleba, etc. And even from the poor tactical setup from the manager, Rigo Bertson. They just weren't playing that good. In fact, the biggest highlight from this match was Onana running up the pitch and giving tips to Mbeumo on how to take this free kick. Like, bro, what the hell is going on with this Cameroon side? Somehow, Eswatini kept Cameroon from scoring, and the game ended in a 0-0 draw. I actually have no words for Cameroon regarding that performance. How do you fail to score a single goal against Eswatini, who respectfully are the punching bag of this group? Come on, bruh. Let's now just go over to the next game, where we got Cape Verde taking on Mauritius. And not gonna lie, although Cape Verde were overall playing some really poor football, you would expect better from them after their recent AFCON where they played amazing footy. They still got the job done, despite it all being from luck. Sometimes though, you need a little bit of luck on your side, and Cape Verde had some in their game against Mauritius. They got lucky when Mauritius' super far attempt away from goal hitting the post. Then in the 84th minute, Semedo's cross actually ended up being a shot on target, and the ball hit the post and went to the back of the net to get a late winner and secure all 3 points for Cape Verde. And even though this was pure luck, I'm happy for Cape Verde, man. I'm low-key trying to see them at the World Cup, but for non-football reasons. If y'all watch the AFCON, you would know what I'm talking about. And now let's go over to the last game of matchday 5 in Group D, where we had Libya versus Angola. And Cisse Star as Libya manager almost started off with a bang, because late in the second half, it seemed like Libya would get their first win under him in qualifying, with Alafi scoring the 74th minute, despite conceding a ton of golden chances from Angola for almost the entire match, even though Libya had some of their own chances in the first half too. But after that goal, Angola would pressure the Libya net even more, and eventually this pressure would pay off in the 90+3 minute thanks to Freddy, who would somehow score from a free kick, getting the ball past the Libyan goalkeeper at the near post to make sure Angola leaves Libya with at least a point. And as for Freddy's celebration, he went up to a Libyan player and celebrated in front of his face, which is just rude. And then he grabbed his balls facing the fans too. Yeah, he might face some punishment for that, I'm not gonna lie, but it was kind of cold, bro, I can't lie. Also, Libya needed to somehow convince Monaco player Moatasem Al-Musrati to unretire from the Libyan national team and come back. He could be a good piece for Libya to have in this qualifying campaign. It's matchday 6 time now, and let's start off with the Eswatini versus Mauritius game. And I wasn't really expecting anything to come out of this game, but just judging from the highlights, man, this game was entertaining as hell. What the heck? Then the first 20 minutes, Eswatini were already surprisingly up 2-0 thanks to a brace from Mekotfo, but Mauritius would get themselves back in the game right at the start of the second half, thanks to goals from Rose in the 47th minute and Aristide in the 50th minute. But it was looking like Eswatini could get their first win on the qualifying campaign, thanks to Mabuza scoring the 75th minute. But unluckily for Eswatini, Vincent in the 90+1st minute from Mauritius would score from a great free kick in the dying moments of the game to equalize, and both Eswatini and Mauritius will leave this game with a point each after this 3-3 draw. The battle of the bottom was definitely a chaotic and entertaining game, just like how African football typically is. On to the next match we go, and we gotta talk about Angola playing Cape Verde at Luanda. Now these are two countries that are underrated in the eyes of football fans in my opinion. Both had pretty good AFCON campaigns last time around, so I was excited to see who was gonna play well in this match. And both teams did alright, to be fair. Initially, Cape Verde were getting the better chances at goal, and it felt like it was only a matter of time before they would score, and they would in the 45th minute of added time, thanks to Livramento. No, not the one from Newcastle. The striker Hellas Verona Livramento, and he scored from a good one-on-one situation to give Cape Verde the lead. However, early on in the second half, Angola's Dala would score to bring the home side back in the game. But Livramento once again would prove pivotal for Cape Verde, as he would score another great one-on-one chance to bring the lead back to his nation and eventually collect all 3 points as Cape Verde won 2-1 away from home. What an amazing March window Cape Verde had, man. Getting 6 out of 6 points. I just know their beautiful fans are gassed right now. If you know, you know. But now it's time to talk about the big game of matchday 6 in Group D, where we had Cameroon versus Libya. Now both Cameroon and Libya are coming off draws that maybe they should have and could have won, especially Cameroon. Cause still, how the hell did they draw against Eswatini? I got no idea. But now it was time to avenge themselves, and they did exactly that. Cameroon played very well at home in Yaoundé, and Abubakar managed to get himself a brace due to a penalty goal in the 27th minute, and then another normal goal in the 61st minute, while Brentford's Mbeumo was scored in the 53rd minute as well to make sure Cameroon had 3 goals in this game. And although El Maremi got 1 goal back in the 90+1st minute for Libya, it wasn't enough clearly, and Cameroon would collect all 3 points at home as they won 3-1. Great bounce back result from the Cameroonians. Well done to them. But Onana and keeping a clean sheet when it matters, yeah, that type of stuff is a rarity. Anyways, it's now time to look at how Group D is shaping up after this March international window. In first place, we got Cape Verde, my guys, who got 13 points right now, but right behind them is Cameroon with 12 points in second place. In third, we got Libya in third place with 8 points, and Angola is right behind them with 7 points in fourth place. Behind them is Mauritius with 5 points in fifth place, and then Eswatini is in last place with 2 points despite having a pretty good March window to their standards. So yeah, it's an interesting group, but the battle at the top is the thing that's most intriguing to me though. Now let's move on to Group B, where we got Morocco, Tanzania, Zambia, Congo, Niger, and Eritrea. And if you just look at the group standings right now, it just looks kind of weird, with Morocco being on top of the table as expected with 3 wins from 3 games, which equals 9 points. Then Niger is in second place with 6 points, Tanzania are in third with also 6 points, just a lower goal difference, Zambia are in fourth with 3 points, and then Congo are in last place, with them being fifth with 0 points and a negative 11 goal difference, because Eritrea actually withdrew from the World Cup qualification due to fear from the Eritrean FA that players will flee from the country if they allow them to play in these qualifiers. But here's the crazy part. Eritrea is now not the only team that's not playing the qualifiers in this group, but actually Congo now are too. You see, FIFA suspended the Republic of Congo after the Congolese government stepped into football affairs, which breaks FIFA rules, where the country's Minister of Sports trying to set up a special committee to run the football federation, and FIFA and CAF saw this as outside political interference, meaning that Congo is now out of the qualifying, which means this group has become a group of 4. And also that means on match day 5, with Zambia and Eritrea being cancelled, and so is Tanzania versus Congo, there's only one game being played on this match day, and that's Nigeria playing at home versus Morocco. But here's the thing, Nigeria are playing at home, but they gotta play in a neutral venue for reasons, and the neutral venue was in Morocco. So that means Morocco has 2 home games technically in qualifying against Niger. Dog, I'm sorry, but how in the world is that fair? CAF gonna pick any other venue outside of Morocco? That's crazy, man. And even with Niger playing at home to an away crowd, USA is used to that against Mexico, so don't worry Niger, I know the feeling. They still played pretty good. In fact, despite Morocco getting the most opportunities early on in the match, Niger actually scored first in the 47th minute. They scored a clever free kick that threw the Moroccan players off guard, and then Youssef Omaru finishing it off messily to give Niger the surprising lead against Morocco at home. But Niger fans will be brought back down from dreamland in the 59th minute, with new Morocco star playing his first World Cup qualifier for them, Brahim Diaz, dropping in a wonderful cross at Ismail Sabari, who tapped it in to equalize the game. And then at added time in the 9+1 minute, Morocco broke Niger hearts, with Bilal El Khanous after a great layoff from Diaz to Mazraoui, who crossed it into him, ended up winning the match for Morocco and setting them well on their way to qualification for the World Cup. Heartbreaking for Niger, but it's always difficult to play against Morocco away from home. Well, they were supposed to be the home side, but you know what I mean by now. Moving on to match day 6 now, 2 games of course are cancelled, with Congo and Zambia being cancelled due to Congo being kicked out, and Nigeria versus Eritrea being cancelled due to Eritrea withdrawing from qualifying. So the only game in match day 6 was Morocco versus Tanzania, and respect to Tanzania, because they kept Morocco out of their goal for the entire first half away from home. That's not an easy thing to do, but here's the thing. Morocco are probably the best team in Africa right now, no glaze, so they were always going to get the win at home, and they did just that in the second half, with Nayef Aguirre scoring for Morocco for the first time in 4 years, I believe, in the 51st minute, and then Morocco's new star player Brahim Diaz scoring the 50th minute due to a penalty to collect all 3 points as the Moroccans won 2-0. Yeah, that's about it. So now, looking at the Group B standings after this March window, we got Morocco way ahead in first place with 15 points, Nigeria is in second with 6 points, Tanzania is in third with also 6 points, just a lower goal difference, and Zambia is technically in last with 3 points, because like I said, Congo and Eritrea are no longer competing. So there's that. Congrats to Morocco, we all know you're going to be at the 2026 World Cup. Moving on to Group F now, we got the likes of Ivory Coast, Gabon, Kenya, Burundi, Gambia, and Seychelles. And now, let's take a look at the standings from where we last left off. The most recent AFCON champions, Ivory Coast, were on top of the table with 10 points and 0 losses. Then Gabon were right behind them in second place with 9 points. Burundi are right behind them in third place with 7 points. Then there's Kenya in fourth place with 5 points. Gambia were surprisingly being more underwhelming than what people thought they would get with them being fifth place with 3 points. And of course, Seychelles were, and still are, let's be serious, dead last with 0 points and a negative 20 goal difference. These guys are using World Cup qualifying to try and gain some more tourism for real. And it's working, because Seychelles looks beautiful, man. I gotta take my wife there sometime, but like in 8 to 10 years. I don't have a wife right now, or even a girlfriend, I'm not gonna lie. But enough yapping about gal. Let's talk about the first match where we got Gabon versus Seychelles. But I mean, is there anything really to talk about? Seychelles were always gonna lose, and that's exactly what happened, with Gabon beating them 3-0 after a dominating display. And then brace from the LAFC man, Dennis Bouanga, helped them out with that. Maybe it could have been more goals from Gabon, but they got the 3 points as expected, and that's what matters. On to the next match we go, and we got Gambia versus Kenya. Now I low-key do have kind of a soft spot for Kenya, because they do have a huge population of Indian people over there. I actually knew a couple of Indians personally that were born in Kenya, so it is a real thing. But Gambia are a whole talent level above Kenya that I didn't really expect too much out of them in this game. They got Musa Barrow, who used to play for Bologna. They got Aliou Federa, who plays for FC Como. They got Yakuba Minte, who of course, their biggest talent, who is currently balling out for Brighton, etc. They got so much talent that I really didn't expect Kenya to get anything out of this game. But they did. Gambia's defense is respectfully atrocious. Gambia could have gone the lead in the first half through a penalty, but Barrow missed it from the spot, and this would end up biting them in the back at the end of the 90. Eventually in the second half though, Gambia would get their much deserved lead thanks to an absolute rock from Musa Barrow in the 55th minute. K golazo from that man. And then Yakuba Minte would mix up a Kenyan defender and score in the 61st minute to give Gambia a 2-0 advantage. But Gambia would end up blowing this 2-0 advantage out of nowhere, with Gambia giving away an avoidable penalty in the 69th minute in which Michael Olunga converted, and then Mohamed Bajeber scoring an absolute golazo in the 75th minute with a shot hitting the top right corner exactly to equalize the game for Kenya. But there was still more time in this match for more drama, because Barrow would get on the end of a scuff cross in the 84th minute to restore the lead for Gambia. But just like when it seemed Gambia secured all 3 points, they failed to do so, because at the very end in the 9+6 minute of the game, William Wilson gets on the end of a throw into the box and scores to equalize the game late, and both teams would share a point in this 3-3 draw. This should have been a win for Gambia, but they capitulated twice in this match, and Kenya truly deserved a point for their fighting spirit. Now onto the last match in Group F in match day 5, we got Burundi versus Ivory Coast, and there's no need to talk about this match too much. The OGC Nice forward, Evan Gassand, continues his good season and scores in the 60th minute to gift Ivory Coast that 1-0 win away from home against Burundi to send them more on their way to a potential World Cup. To for Burundi, but they didn't really stand a chance, to be honest. Moving on to match day 6 now, let's go over to the first game, where we got Kenya playing Gabon in Nairobi. And this was an intriguing matchup to say the least, especially with Kenya playing at home. But even though Kenya's Michael Olunga scored a good tap in from a great Kenya attack in the 62nd minute, it didn't matter because the difference maker for Gabon, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, was locked the hell in for this match. And he scored a brace, scoring 1 goal in the 60th minute and then calmly slotting in a penalty in the 52nd minute to help Gabon win away from home 2-1.
Obama who? Obama what?
Yeah, Gabon had the star player in this match while Kenya didn't, and that's why Gabon won. It's as simple as that. Then in the following match, we had Ivory Coast versus the Gambia. And like I said before, the Gambia is actually a very talented team. They're just struggling to get the results that they need to. So with that, there was absolutely zero chance that these guys were beating the AFCON champions at their ground. And to be fair to them, it was a close affair. And although Gambia had a couple of opportunities, the man who fought back from cancer to score in the AFCON final, Sebastian Aller, scored in the 50th minute and helped secure all 3 points for Ivory Coast in their 1-0 win. Listen, Ivory Coast have not been playing spectacular football in this window, but they got 6 points out of 6 and kept a clean sheet in both games. So it's hard to complain about anything here if you're an Ivory Coast fan. And on to the last match of this group, you got Burundi taking on Seychelles. And let's just cut to the chase, bruh. Seychelles obviously lost. They're literally just in this for the tourism purposes, let's be for real. And Burundi smoked them, slapping them up 5-0. So yeah, congrats to Burundi on the win, but we all knew this was gonna happen. And now it's time to look at the standings after the March international window for this group. In first place, we got Ivory Coast with 16 points. They're still undefeated as well, by the way. Then we got Gabon in second place with 15 points. Burundi are now in third place with 10 points, with Kenya behind them in fourth place with 6 points. Gambia are in fifth place with 4 points, and Seychelles are now eliminated from making the World Cup, although there was zero chance that they would, and their last was 0 points and a negative 28 goal difference. The battle for the automatic spot though is going to be a fun watch for sure though. On to the next group in African qualifying we go, and we got Group G, which consists of Algeria, Mozambique, Guinea, Uganda, Botswana, and Somalia. And from the last time these guys played, this is how the table looks like. You got Algeria in first place with 9 points, Mozambique is right behind them in second place with also 9 points, just a lower goal difference. Botswana is in third with 6 points, Guinea is in fourth with also 6 points, just a lower goal difference. Uganda is in fifth with also 6 points, they're just lower than Guinea because their country starts with a U, that's literally it. And then Somalia is in last place with 0 points and a negative 6 goal difference. No surprises there. Their players probably just hog the ball 24/7. Anyways, let's start this off by talking about the first game of match day 5, where we got Mozambique versus Uganda. Now Mozambique have been impressing myself and every football fan so far in these African World Cup qualifiers, because the fact they have 3 wins in 4 games and are in serious contention to qualifying for the World Cup just speaks volumes on how good they're becoming. And this game against Uganda was no different. We're also a half decent side themselves, except their goalkeeper Watenga, because he had a disaster class. His disaster class was so bad that he even got subbed out in the game. A goalkeeper got subbed out. Yeah, that's how bad he was in this match. Literally in the 3rd minute of the game, Peppa scored an elastic goal from the corner kick because the Uganda goalkeeper was just way off his line for no reason whatsoever. Then although Uganda's Shaban found a way to equalize in the 7th minute, it didn't matter because Peppa once again pounced on another goalkeeping mistake in the 16th minute and scored, stripping the lead back to Mozambique. Then after Uganda were down to 10 men due to a red card for Dennis Omedi, Stanley Rethifo would score an added time in the first half for Mozambique, and Mozambique would end up winning this match 3-1 and secured all 3 points rather comfortably. Uganda's goalkeeper was just so bad that he ended up putting a smile on my face just because of how comical it was watching it. Let's now move on to the next match, where we have Botswana taking on Algeria in Francistown. And although the circumstances to get the dub were slightly difficult for Algeria, Vladimir Pekovic's side did the job rather well and got the result they needed also rather comfortably. The first half though started off a bit tricky, but things just started to take shape as Guri headed the ball in from Amara's cross in the 44th minute into the back of the net. Botswana's goalkeeper should have done better there, but Algeria deserved the lead. Algeria's Amura would then get a brace by scoring in the 52nd minute and also in the 74th minute to make sure Algeria bagged 3 goals in this game. And although Botswana's Kopa Lang scored, it wouldn't be enough, and Algeria would secure all 3 points away from home as they beat Botswana 3-1. It was a well-deserved win for Algeria in my book, and they're looking pretty good for a potential 2026 World Cup berth. Now for the final game of match day 5 in Group G, we got Guinea versus Somalia. And despite Guinea having more star power in this game with players like Serhouk Jarasi, one of the top goal scorers in Europe, leading their lines, Guinea failed to score a single goal. In fact, Somalia were so close to getting their first win on this qualifying campaign in the 90th minute, but instead of scoring the ball, the Somalian forward just smacked the ball over the crossbar and the game ended 0-0. That's the most Somalian stereotype shit I've ever seen. They're never being the allegations, huh? Now moving on to match day 6, let's start with Uganda versus Guinea. And Guinea were really bad in their match versus Somalia, like I said, and they were bad once again against Uganda, losing 1-0 to them due to a 36-minute goal from Okello. Guinea, what the hell is going on, bro? Sure, y'all didn't have Naby Keita this window, but this dude's never fit, so that's nothing to complain about. And y'all have Jarasi, and even with him, you guys can't score for shit. Disappointing from them, but a good win for Uganda in these qualifiers. On to the next match we go, and let's talk about Botswana versus Somalia. And listen, I'll just be honest, there was zero chance that Somalia was going to get any sort of result away from home to Botswana, even with Botswana not being one of the better African sides in all honesty. But is it just me, or is Somalia actually slightly getting a bit better? Their goalkeeper has been having a masterclass this window, and honestly, they're looking quite decent overall, but Somalia couldn't get the result like I said. And eventually, Botswana broke through Somalia's defense in the 74th minute, thanks to Mohosiwa, and then got another goal in the 83rd minute, thanks to Johnson to win 2-0. But who knows, if Somalia keeps on impressing me like this, maybe one day they can make it to the AFCON. Okay, who am I kidding? That's never happened. But now let's go over to the big match on match day 6 in Group G, the battle of the top dogs of the group, Algeria versus Mozambique. Both teams are fighting for that automatic ticket to the 2026 World Cup that you only get if you finish on top of the table. And although Mozambique seemed to have the initial advantage, getting a result away in Algeria was always going to be difficult. And it was, because although Mozambique is a good side, they didn't get the result they wanted at all. It started off in the 8th minute for the Algerians, who got on the scoreboard thanks to Wolfsburg player Omura, who scored a great goal to put Algeria 1-0 up ahead. Then in the 24th minute, the Mozambique keeper failed to rebound the ball elsewhere, and Mandi would get on the rebound and score to make it 2-0 Algeria. Omura again would make it 3-0 6 minutes later in the 30th minute, and Algeria were in dreamland. Then although Jenny Katamo would bring one back from Mozambique in the 40th minute, Hadjam would score for Algeria in the 65th minute to restore that 3-goal advantage. And then Omura would get his hat-trick in the 80th minute due to a pretty lucky deflection, and Algeria would run away 5-1 in this game and secure all 3 points. A massive win for the Algerians, who are trying to make their first World Cup since 2014, and who barely missed out last time just due to Cameroon's last second goal. And now with all that being said, let's take a look at how the Group G table looks like after March. And first, we now have Algeria, who have 15 points. Then in second, we have Mozambique with 12 points. And third, we got Botswana with 9 points. And fourth, we got Uganda with also 9 points, just a lower goal difference. Guinea are now in fifth with 7 points. They've been really disappointing. And Somalia are almost eliminated entirely, with them being in dead last with just 1 measly point. I think this group is now playing out in Algeria's favor, and I don't see them screwing this up if I'm being perfectly honest. Now moving on to Group H, we got Tunisia, Namibia, Liberia, Malawi, Equatorial Guinea, and Sao Tome and Principe. And from the last time we've seen these countries play, the table looked like this. Tunisia were on top of the table with 10 points and remained undefeated. Namibia were right behind them in second place with 8 points while also being undefeated, just had 1 less win than Tunisia is all. Liberia were right behind them in third with 7 points. Malawi were right behind them in fourth place with 6 points. Equatorial Guinea, actually a good African side that destroyed the AFCON host Ivory Coast 4-0 before they won the whole thing, are in 5th place with 3 points, and that's due to them being forced to forfeit their 2 wins as FIFA deemed Emilio Nsue ineligible for a couple games early on in his career, or else who knows, maybe they might have actually been well on their way to qualifying for the World Cup. And Sao Tome and Principe are just here for the vibes, and they were last place with 0 points and a -9 goal difference. But now let's talk about the first game in this group of match day 5, where we got Liberia versus Tunisia. And there isn't too much to talk about this game. Tunisia just got an early goal in the 4th minute thanks to Mastouri, and after that, it was all Liberia. But Liberia just couldn't break down this Tunisian defense, and Tunisia ended up winning this match 1-0 and got all 3 points. Simple as that. On to the next match we go, and we got Malawi versus Namibia, a team, by the way, who's been growing in African football these past 2 years. Not only are they doing really well in qualifying recently, but Namibia also had a pretty good recent AFCON too, so just keep an eye out for them. And speaking about Namibia, they did what they had to do and secured all 3 points thanks to a Tijweza goal in the 40th minute, and after that, Malawi just couldn't break down Namibia and they got all 3 points with this 1-0 win. Simple. And now on to the last game of match day 5 in Group H, we gotta talk about Equatorial Guinea versus Sao Tome and Principe. And let me just keep this one short and simple. With Emilio Nsue returning to the national team, there was 0 chance in hell that Sao Tome and Principe was ever gonna get a result in this game, and they did it, because Nsue scored in the 14th minute, and Salvador scored in the 17th minute, and Equatorial Guinea won 2-0 and got all 3 points. It's as simple as that. We're now over in match day 6 in Group H, and let's start off by talking about Namibia versus Equatorial Guinea first. And in this game, there wasn't too much to separate these two sides, and that makes sense because this game ended in a 1-1 draw. With Emilio Nsue coming back for Equatorial Guinea, they're a much stronger side than compared to before. But even then, Namibia still managed to take the lead in the 51st minute thanks to Shalulio. But Coco, yeah, his name is Coco, equalized 3 minutes later in the 54th minute, and the game ended in a 1-1 draw, and that's that. Following that match, we got Liberia versus Sao Tome and Principe, and I can't lie, I wanted Liberia to win this one, just because Timothy Weah, a player of my favorite national team, USA, is George Weah's son, who's the former president and a former player of Liberia. And guess what? Liberia won, thanks to a 4th minute goal from Andrews, and then a 32nd minute goal from Farkarlu. And although Dola brought one back surprisingly for Sao Tome and Principe, it wasn't enough, and Liberia won this match 2-1. And now let's go over to the biggest match on match day 6 in Group H. We got Tunisia versus Malawi, and in the first half, literally nothing happened. But in the second half, Tunisia were knocking on the door and getting good chances against Malawi. Then eventually in the 64th minute, Malawi's Lloyd Aaron gets a double yellow and gets sent off, completely swaying this tie to Tunisia's favor. And Tunisia will make their fans wait to make this count, but they did eventually in the 86th minute thanks to a goal from Savedin Jaziri, who patiently waited on the back post and headed in the ball to score and put Tunisia up ahead 1-0. Eventually, Tunisia would be given a penalty, and Elias Achuri would score from the spot in the 90+2nd minute to make it 2-0, and Tunisia would end up grabbing all 3 points. So now, going over to the final Group H standings, we've got Tunisia in first place as we all expected with 16 points. They're definitely making the World Cup automatically if we're keeping it real. And Namibia are in second place with 12 points. Liberia are right behind them in third with 10 points. Equatorial Guinea are in fourth with 7 points. They would be much higher if they weren't punished for the whole Nsue thing. Malawi are in fifth with 6 points, and Sao Tome and Principe still have 0 points. Tough for them. Now on to the last group in African World Cup qualifying. Finally, for real, we got Group I, which consists of Ghana, Madagascar, Mali, Comoros, Central African Republic, and Chad. And since the last time we've spoken about this group, let's take a look at the standings. In first place, we actually have Comoros, which is kind of wild, with them having 9 points. Then in second, we had Ghana, who also had 9 points. They just had a lower goal difference. In third place, we have Madagascar with 7 points. Surprisingly, the pot 1 team in this group, Mali, was in fourth place with 5 points. points. Central African Republic was in 5th with 4 points, and Chad were in dead last with 0 points and a -8 goal difference. Not really living up to that country name though, huh? Anyways, let's talk about the first game in matchday 5 of this group, where we had the Central African Republic versus Madagascar. And the country that had a whole Pixar movie series named after them were the ones that came out looking real great after this matchday. Because although the Central African Republic scored first in the 9th minute thanks to Gambor, it wouldn't take long for Madagascar to run out the score. A huge reason for that is because of the captain, Rivalry, the ex-LA Galaxy and the current Young Boys midfielder, who scored in the 70th minute to bring Madagascar back level, and then 4 minutes later in the 21st minute, scored a wide open header in the box to give Madagascar the 2-1 lead. Onto the second half we go, and Randrianantanyandananya, guacamole, what a last name that is, scored in the 49th minute from a karate kick to give Madagascar a 2-goal advantage. And then Rafa Nomezatatola in the 89th minute to make it 4-1 Madagascar and secured them a huge 3 points. And wow, these last names from Madagascar are something else, huh? I definitely butchered these names, I'm sorry, yo. Moving on to the next game on matchday 5, we got Comoros versus Mali. And Mali, man, these guys looked really impressive on matchday 5 and looked like a real top quality side. Of course, we all know they got great players like Basuma, but it's about time one of the highest ranked nations to never play in a World Cup starts performing great. And they did that against Comoros, the initial leaders of the group. Because away to Comoros, well, technically in Morocco, but still, Mali played amazingly in those beautiful kits and won 3-0. Thanks to Nene, who scored in the 20th minute, and Dumia, who scored a brace, once in the 55th minute, and then his second goal in the 63rd minute. Overall, it was a really good display by Mali, and they should be proud of themselves for that performance. And now we're finally talking about a team that I've been wanting to talk about for like the past 30 minutes. It's Ghana, who played Chad at home in Accra. Now listen, Ghana were always going to steamroll over Chad. It was no question. And they did beat them 5-0. Thanks to Semenya, who scored in the 2nd minute. He's been balling out this season. Iñaki Williams finally gets a second goal for the Black Stars in the 31st minute. Ayew scored a penalty in the 36th minute. Salisa scored in the 56th minute. And then Nwama scored in the 68th minute. But it's not just the 3 points against Chad that matters for Ghana. It's the fact that they're starting to get the fans back on their side. Because after failing to secure AFCON, the fans were definitely turning on this Ghanaian team. And as a neutral, it shocked me to see how far this team was falling. The same side who was so close to making the semifinals of the World Cup in 2010 to now missing an AFCON. They fell off so hard. But now after this win and Ghana fighting for a potential World Cup spot, all could be potentially forgiven for that AFCON qualifying failure. But now it's time we go over matchday 6 in Group A, where we're going to begin with Central African Republic versus Mali. And surprisingly, this game ended 0-0. Not too much to talk about, except I'm just shocked that Mali did not get the win. They're supposed to be a pot 1 side, yet they keep dropping points that they shouldn't be. Then over to the next match, we got Comoros versus Chad. And shout out to Comoros because they're putting in that work in these African qualifiers, and it's paying off so far. But Saeed scored in the 24th minute to secure all 3 points in their 1-0 win over Chad. But now it's time to talk about the big game between Madagascar versus Ghana that was played in Morocco. I swear, hella of these games are being played in Morocco, bruh. Why is the game not being played in Madagascar? That would have been lit. But anyways, Ghana would handle the business, which is surprising because they couldn't handle the business when it came to qualify for AFCON. But for the World Cup, they're turning it up. They threw a brace from Thomas Partey, and then a goal from their best player in my opinion, Mohamed Kudus, in the 50th minute. But now let's look at the Group I standings after these 2 match days. And we've got Ghana in first place with 15 points. They're looking good. Comoros is also looking pretty good in second place with 12 points. Right behind them though is Madagascar in third place with 10 points. Mali's in fourth with 9 points. They should be way higher up, man. Fifth place is Central African Republic with 5 points. And then sixth place is the now eliminated Chad with 0 points and a -14 goal difference. Tough luck for Chad, man. Tough luck. But now with all that being said, as you can see, the African World Cup 2026 qualifying has been crazy in March. However, we're not done, because South America's qualifying has been pretty insane too in this past window. But before we talk about that, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it and it means a lot, so thank you. And also, if you guys can, follow my Twitter and my Instagram, both at Nabuto, if you just want to hear my thoughts on football games, transfers, and overall just to get to know me more. And also, make sure to join the Discord server, link in the description, and also follow me on Twitch. Live streams may be coming soon. So if you want to, feel free to follow my socials, join the Discord server, and also like the video. That would be much appreciated. Thank you. Back to CONMEBOL. Before this March 2025 international window took place, this is how the table looked like. And first, we had the World Cup champions Argentina with 25 points. Then in second, we had Uruguay with 20 points. Ecuador was in third with 19 points. Colombia was in fourth with also 19 points, just had a lower goal difference. Brazil was in fifth with 18 points. Paraguay was in sixth with 17 points. Bolivia was in seventh with 13 points. They were just in that Interconfederation playoff spot, which is just insane. Then Venezuela were right behind them in eighth with 12 points. They've been declining these past couple of windows. Then Chile was in ninth with 9 points. And Peru was in dead last with 5 points, which is fair because they've been one of the worst teams in CONMEBOL. Anyways, let's now talk about matchday 13. And let's just get Paraguay versus Chile out of the way first. Now on the stat sheet, Paraguay dominated this match. They had 16 shots compared to Chile's 9 and had 5 on target compared to Chile's 3. Sure, Chile had the majority of the possession with 65%, but there's no point on holding onto the ball for that much if you're not going to do anything with it. Now yes, I know, I'm being rather harsh on Chile, because truth be told, they actually had some pretty decent chances in this game, more than a couple actually that could have gone into the back of the net, but beating this Paraguay side away from home is difficult, and no way a washed side like Chile was ever going to be capable of that. And this happened to be the case, because from a free kick in the 60th minute, Sanabria, who got back up from falling down, headed the ball to the back far post for Omar Alderete to tap it in and bring Paraguay a 1-0 lead that they would hold on to for the entire 90 minutes, collecting 3 points at the end of the day. A huge victory for Paraguay in their hopes of making the World Cup, while for Chile, is just another loss. And it's so funny that Arturo Vidal after the match held up 2 fingers to show how many Copa Americas Chile had. But at the same time, Paraguay also has 2 Copa America titles. Vidal, what the hell was the point of that, bro? That literally made no sense. Moving on to the next game of the Congo qualifiers on match day 13, let's talk about Peru versus Bolivia. And the one thing everybody knows about Bolivia is that when they're playing away from home, they're kind of cheeks. Without them playing at home with their insane elevation, Bolivia low-key gets exposed. And that happened in this game, to the worst side in Congo according to the standings, Peru. Now yes, Bolivia had more shots than Peru, but Peru had the better quality of chances with 7 shots on target and slightly more possession. Plus the main stat that matters, the scoreboard, Peru got the better of Bolivia. Peru were pressuring Bolivia's side of the goal for the majority of the first half. And eventually, after a couple of lucky bounces in the 37th minute, Peru's number 7, Andy Polo, would finally score for his country to put Peru up 1-0 in the first half. But this half would only continue to get better for Peru, because one of their biggest ever legends, Paulo Guerrero, who's literally 41 years old right now, by the way, he's literally an unk, was scoring in the 45th minute to put Peru up 2-0. I'm surprised Guerrero was still being considered for the national team at his age, but he's scoring goals for Peru, so I can't even hate. Bolivia would eventually get a penalty in the second half due to a handball, and Miguel Terceros would eventually convert it to bring Bolivia back in the game, but Edison Flores would shut down any potential comeback for Bolivia and score for Peru in the 82nd minute to help Peru get their second win of the 2026 qualifying in South America and beat Bolivia 3-1. Bolivia did not deserve the win away from home, and Peru definitely did, so well done to the Peruvians. Maybe they could use this momentum to get some more good results. Nah, I'm just playing. It's Peru. Who am I kidding? That definitely ain't happening. On to the next match we go, and let's talk about Ecuador versus Venezuela. And I mean, I don't know about y'all, but this match was only ever gonna go one way, and it went the way that I fully expected. I mean, Ecuador are currently in the process of potentially having a golden generation, with them having top players like Moises Caicedo, Kendrick Baez, Gonzalo Plata, Hincapié, Pacho, etc. While Venezuela have completely fallen off after the 2024 Copa America. Initially, I was thinking that they could actually make their first ever World Cup, but recently it's just been looking kinda gloomy for them, I'm not gonna lie. And Ecuador dominated this match. Sure, they had the same number of shots on target, but Ecuador has significantly more shots with 16, and an overwhelming amount of possession with 71%. And they would make all this count in the game too. From the jump in this game, Ecuador would be getting the plethora of chances, and it felt inevitable that they would eventually score. And they would in the 39th minute, thanks to their captain, Ender Valencia. This guy's Mr. Consistent for his country, I swear, bro. Cause he managed to score from a crazy angle off a half volley to put his nation up 1-0. Did he mean to do that? I have no idea, but they all count the same. Then in the 46th minute, Ender Valencia would pounce on a bad Venezuela back pass and will lob the ball over the keeper to bring Ecuador a cushiony 2-0 advantage. And although Jonder Gadis would get one back due to some kind of bicycle kick-ish, it didn't even matter, because Ecuador would end up winning 2-1 and would collect all 3 points. It seems like Ecuador is well on their way to the World Cup, while Venezuela is still kind of going through their downfall. Maybe it'll turn around the next game. Foreshadowing. Moving on to the next match, let's talk about Uruguay versus Argentina. And this was certainly a game that I was keeping my eye on, because these two heavyweights going toe-to-toe was always going to be an interesting watch, especially because Uruguay got the better of Argentina last time they played in qualifying away from home. So I was wondering whether we were going to see Uruguay collect the 3 points again, especially with Messi not participating for Argentina in these qualifiers. Yeah, this was going to be spicy, but in all honesty, Uruguay just looked really disappointing to me personally. They were beaten with the chances, with Argentina having 12 shots with 4 of them on target to Uruguay's 2, and despite Uruguay having more possession, they didn't really make any use of it. Honestly, they literally had nothing going forward, and question marks have to be raised on Marcelo Bielsa, because offensively, this team genuinely got fuck all. I don't care if they got Darwin Núñez, he clearly isn't putting in the work. And as a Liverpool fan, seeing the levels between Argentina's Julian Alvarez to Darwin Núñez in this game was just crazy. We might as well just sign Alvarez and let go of Darwin Núñez, bro. I'm being so serious. I'd rather have Alexander Isak though, but that's a different question. But anyways, the team with the better opportunities won, and that was Argentina. And it was all thanks to the ex-Botafogo and ex-Atlanta United man, Thiago Almada, a former wonderkid on FIFA, who scored an absolute cracker in this match to bring Argentina a 1-0 win away from home, and certainly have got his nation qualifying for the World Cup in due time. By due time, I literally mean in a few days time, but we'll talk about that soon enough. But what a goal from Almada, man, and what a performance by Argentina. They're showing lately that they can perform without Messi, and that just makes them even scarier in my books. And wow, these jerseys are absolutely stunning too. Muy hermosa. I hope I said that right. But now let's go to the last game of matchday 13 regarding South American qualifiers, where we had Brazil versus Colombia. Definitely one of the juiciest ties in all of the qualifying international windows. And man, I was hyped about this match, and it definitely delivered. There were challenges flying in, chances on both sides, and just a pretty fun game to watch overall. But truth be told, I was pretty surprised by Brazil, because for the first time in a very long time, it felt like they were just the better side against good opposition. Colombia just made the Copa America final last summer, and sure, they have fallen off a little bit since then, but Brazil's performance against a top side like this without the King Neymar just shows that maybe Brazil are finally getting their shit together. If we look at the stat sheet, Brazil were the better side. They had the more shots with 17, they had more shots on target with 7, they had more possession with 52%, and for once, under Brazilian shirt, Vinicius actually looked like a proper baller. He was going crazy in this game. For example, for Rafinha's penalty in the 6th minute, which he scored, it all happened because Vinicius got fouled in the box after his clever dribbling. And although Brazil went through some setbacks in this game with Liverpool's Luis Diaz scoring in the 41st minute, which by the way is crazy, how does Lucho always go for Colombia but not for Liverpool? Where does his confidence go with the Reds? But anyways, even with this goal and Alisson having to get subbed out because of concussion protocol, Brazil still looked like the much better side. And eventually in added time in the 90 plus 9th minute, the very last minute of the game in fact, Vinicius takes a shot from way downtown and somehow bags it into the opposite side of the goalkeeper to secure Brazil all 3 points late into the game and help his country win 2-1 in basically a must-win game for a potential guaranteed qualification to the 2026 World Cup. I've rightfully criticized Vinicius' performances for Brazil, but in this match, he showed that maybe he can finally handle the pressure that the Brazilian jersey holds. But now it's finally time to talk about match day 14, and let's just quickly glance over Chile versus Ecuador first. That's because almost nothing happened in this game. Sure, Chile had more of the possession and the shots at home, but both teams only had 2 shots on target, meaning in the entire 90 minutes, there were only 4 shots that potentially threatened the goalkeeper. And although Chile had more of the general shots, it didn't matter because Ecuador's strong defense locked Chile's offense up, and the game ended in a 0-0 draw with both teams sharing a point. I kind of expected Ecuador to get the win, even though they were playing away from home, but it's not the end of the world that they drew this game. On to the next match, let's talk about Bolivia versus Uruguay. Now Uruguay were heading into this match in some poor form. Honestly, they've been in poor form ever since the 2024 Copa America where they got 3rd place, and with Bolivia playing at home, I kind of expected Bolivia to get the win here. And honestly, if Bolivia wants to cement themselves in a great spot to at least make the Interconfederation playoffs, a win against Uruguay would have helped them out a lot. But sadly, even though Bolivia absolutely dominated this game, I mean they literally had 32 shots, you heard me correctly, with 7 of them on target compared to Uruguay, who has 0 shots on target from their 11, and also having 66% of the possession. Bolivia were sadly unable to make these good opportunities count on the scoreboard, and the game ended in a 0-0 draw. Uruguay would take a draw against Bolivia at high elevation, but Bolivia, man, they probably feel like that they should have done better. And I mean, they can't do too much better than 32 shots, but they gotta be more clinical, man. This game was there for the taking, and they failed to do that. Tough luck for Bolivia. I'm still rooting for y'all, but it's just not looking too good right now. Now let's talk about a game which had a country that benefited from Bolivia dropping points. It's Venezuela versus Peru. And if you're not Venezuelan or Peruvian and watch this game, man, I just feel bad for y'all. This just screamed of a stinker of a game. And it kinda was. Sure, both teams almost had the same number of shots, but Peru had most of the possession while Venezuela had the more shots on target. Look at Peru, man. 11 shots and only 1 on target. Wow, that's abysmal. And lucky for Venezuela, they won this game thanks to a penalty that Solomon Rondon converted in the 41st minute to help them finally grab all 3 points in qualifying and be happy for once. But yeah, not a whole lot to be excited about from this game, if I'm keeping it a stack. Let's swiftly move on to the next game where we got Colombia versus Paraguay. And yeah, this game was a good one. Just looking at the stat sheet alone, you can tell that this game was a banger, with Paraguay having 21 shots away from home with 6 of them on target, while Colombia had 10 shots at home with 5 on target, and also 61% possession. But 11 shots on target in this game? Yeah, this game was lit, and this would be reflected in the scoreboard. Literally starting off in the very first minute, Luis Diaz will receive the ball in an open area, mix the hell out of a Paraguayan defender, and then shot the ball into the roof of the net to establish an early 1-0 lead for the Colombians. And now Luis Diaz has 2 goals in 2 games for Colombia in March, which just begs the question, Lucho, where the hell is this amazing goal scoring for when it comes to playing for Liverpool? Why does this always disappear when he's playing for the Reds? But for Colombia, this dude just seems like he never fails to miss the target. Unbelievable, man. Moving on to the 13th minute, Luis Diaz will play in a great ball to the new Al Nassr man Jean Duran, who easily gets his shot by the keeper and scored to bring a 2-0 lead to Colombia in just the opening 15 minutes against a very tough Paraguay side right now. Colombia were in dreamland, and it seemed like this game was going to be the one that helped Colombia get back on track and back to winning ways. But I was wrong, because Paraguay was starting to get more chances and get back into the game. And before you knew it, in the 45th plus 4th minute, Alonso would get an open header at the back post from a corner kick and scored to bring the game back within 1 for Paraguay right before halftime. This was a crucial time for Paraguay to score a goal, and the halftime team talk was definitely more motivating after this chance went into the back of the net. And this inspiration will all pay off in the 62nd minute thanks to Julio Enciso, who by the way, I don't know what's going on with them club-wise, like getting loaned out to Ipswich Town from Brighton, but for Paraguay, this guy's a baller, and he showed that in this game, because during this attack, he got by 2 Colombian defenders with ease, and then absolutely slammed the ball in top bench from outside the box to equalize the game for Paraguay away from home. And this goal from Enciso would be the last one of the match, as both teams would share a point in this 2-2 draw. An absolutely huge result for Paraguay. While for Colombia on the other hand, ever since they lost to Argentina in the Copa America final, they look like a shadow of their former selves. They better still qualify for the World Cup though. I'm trying to see them Colombian shorties in the stands, if you know what I mean. But now let's talk about the best game in South American qualifying that all of us were definitely waiting for. It's Argentina versus Brazil. And this game was starting to get heated before the match even started. That's because Rafinha, the face of Brazil and the 2025 Ballon d'Or right now, sat down with the legend Romario before the match and started talking smack, saying they'll beat Argentina no doubt, and then proceeded to say that he'll fuck them too. Pause! But wow, that's a lot of dirty talk before the game. They better back all this up in the match, right? Right? Nope, because they did did anything but that. Just looking at the stat sheet alone, you could tell that Argentina dominated Brazil in Buenos Aires, with them having 12 shots to Brazil's 3, with some of them being on target compared to Brazil's 1, while also having 56% possession of the ball, which was obviously more than Brazil's. And Argentina will make their great opportunities and possession of the ball count in this match. Starting off early in the 4th minute, Julian Alvarez would get a tad bit lucky with the ball bouncing off a couple of Brazilian defenders, and then would put the ball into the back of the net to give Argentina an early 1-0 lead. Then 8 minutes later in the 12th minute, Argentina would double their lead thanks to Enzo Fernandez, who was at the right place at the right time after Molina's cross into the box got deflected to him, and he tapped the ball in to make it a 2-0 Argentina lead. However, in the 26th minute, Cristian Romero let Matias Cunha take the ball off him, and he scored to bring the game back within 1 for Brazil. But this mistake wouldn't weigh too heavy on Argentina's minds for too long, because in the 37th minute, Liverpool's very own Alexis McAllister would make a great run into the box after an Enzo Fernandez long ball, and he would tap the ball in cleverly to restore the 2-goal advantage for Argentina. That's my Liverpool player, man. W. McAllister. Then over to the second half, Diego Simeone's son, Giuliano Simeone, would score his first goal for his country, which was an absolute banger at a tight angle to make it 4-1 to Argentina. And the World Cup champions, who already had their place secured at the World Cup after the Bolivia game, would achieve all 3 points and beat their arch rivals Brazil in embarrassing fashion. And man, just so much more heated stuff happened in the game too. Like Rodrigo telling Paredes that he's very bad, and then Paredes telling him that he's got 1 World Cup and 2 Copa Americas, while Rodrigo has nothing. Then during a little bit of a scuffle, Vinicius tells an Argentina player that he's got 2 Champions League trophies, which I don't get why he's trying to flex that in an international football match, especially the World Cup champions, but whatever. Then Otamendi gets in Rafinha's face and tells him to shut up. The Argentina fans would then start to chant that Rafinha is the son of a bitch. Damn. After the game too, while Rafinha was walking off, goalkeeper Emi Martinez would run into him on purpose, and a little bit of a scuffle happened because of that too. And then during the match as well, Emi Martinez started juggling the ball to taunt the Brazilians, and his manager Scaloni got a little upset at that too, etc. Just so many heated incidents happened in this game, and this made this match just way more entertaining. But yeah, Brazil is clearly nothing without Neymar, and people who say that isn't true just don't know ball. It's as simple as that. They need him back ASAP if they want to do anything at the 2026 World Cup. Now with all of that out of the way, let's look at the final standings of the Comoros qualifying after the March international window. In first place we got Argentina, who have now qualified to the World Cup with 31 points. Then in second place we got Ecuador, who have 23 points. Then in third place we still have Uruguay, who have been pretty underwhelming with 21 points. Brazil is right after them in fourth place with also 21 points, just a lower goal difference. Paraguay is also right after Brazil in fifth place with 21 points as well, just a lower goal difference. And Colombia falls down all the way to sixth place with 20 points. Then over to the Interconfederation playoff spot, it's now Venezuela in that position with 15 points. Bolivia falls down to 8th place with 14 points. There's still a chance for them. Peru is in 9th place with 10 points. And then Chile is now in dead last with also 10 points, just a lower goal difference. But now that's enough about Comoros World Cup qualifying. Let's now move on to a region that's finally starting their World Cup qualifying games, and that's Europe, aka the UEFA region. Now talking about UEFA World Cup qualifying right now is a little bit tricky because not every group was playing in World Cup qualifying games this window due to the UEFA Nations League still being underway in March and the future June international window. So let's go over the groups that didn't play so far really quickly. Starting off with Group A, we have Germany, Slovakia, Northern Ireland, and Luxembourg. Germany should easily qualify from that, but this group has not started. Then in Group B, we have Switzerland, Sweden, Slovenia, Kosovo. This one's all to play for at the top of the table, but this group also hasn't started playing their qualifiers. Then in Group C, we've got Denmark, Greece, Scotland, and Belarus. I'm intrigued to see how Greece performs. They've been doing pretty good lately, but yeah, this group hasn't started either. Then there's Group D, which has France, Ukraine, Iceland, and Azerbaijan. Yeah, France has this one in the bag. Over to Group B, we've got Spain, Turkey, Georgia, and Bulgaria. It's a pretty difficult group just off the names, but I think Spain's got this one. And then there's Group F, which has Portugal, Hungary, Republic of Ireland, and Armenia that also hasn't started their qualifying games. Now on to the first group that actually has started their 2026 World Cup qualifiers. We've got Group G, where Poland is currently on top of the group with all 6 points. Finland is in second with 4 points. Lithuania is in third with 1 point. Netherlands is in fourth with 0 points, but that's because they've been preoccupied with the Nations League, so they haven't played a game yet. And of course, Malta is in last with 0 points and a -3 goal difference. Now let's just quickly go over the games that have occurred in this group. Talking about Poland versus Lithuania, Poland won that game 1-0 thanks to an 81st minute goal from Robert Lewandowski. But even though Poland only scored 1 goal, they definitely deserved to win the match. They had way more of the possession of the game and had 7 shots on target from Poland's 24, which was significantly more than Lithuania. Then over to the other match between Malta versus Finland. This also ended in a 1-0 victory, but this time it was for the away side Finland, who scored in the 30th minute thanks to a footballer named Ant-Man. Yeah, you heard me correctly, Ant-Man. No, not the Marvel superhero, but the Finnish player. Going over to match day 2 for these teams, Poland had to play Malta, and let's just be honest, Malta aren't a very good side. So of course, Poland would end up winning this one 2-0 thanks to a brace from Swiderski, the ex-Charlotte FC attacker actually. That's a little fun fact for y'all there. And then in the other game between Lithuania versus Finland, it was actually kind of entertaining, with Lithuania having more shots on target, but Finland having the more shots with 13 and the more possession of the ball. And regardless of Finland going up 2-0 thanks to a 3rd minute goal from Kan Kairinen and a 17th minute penalty from Joel Pagenpolo, Lithuania would actually come back in this game. First thanks to Armandas Kušis in the 39th minute, and then Gavidas Genis Benitez in the 69th minute to equalize the game back up and make sure both teams left this match with a point. But yeah, that's kind of it for Group G. But now let's move on to Group H, where we have Bosnia and Herzegovina in first place with 6 points currently. Romania are behind them with 3 points in second place. Cyprus are right behind them in third place with also 3 points, just a lower goal difference. Austria are in fourth with 0 points, but that's just because they haven't played a game yet. And the glorious San Marino is sadly in last place with 0 points. Imagine if San Marino actually made the World Cup, man. That would be scenes. But sadly, it's not going to happen. Speaking of San Marino though, let's talk about their matchday 1 game first against Cyprus. And initially in the first half, I thought there was maybe a chance that San Marino could pull off the upset even though they were away from home, with them keeping Cyprus out of their side of the goal for the entire first 45 minutes. But sadly in the second half, things turned sour for San Marino. That's because Cyprus's Ionas Pita scored in the 55th minute, and then near the end of the game in the 86th minute, Andronikos Kakoulis scored in the 86th minute to make it a 2-0 win for Cyprus. And although the streets wanted San Marino to win, they didn't deserve it. I mean, Cyprus dominated the match on shots on target, and even had an overwhelming amount of the possession. So yeah, there's that. But on to the next game on matchday 1, let's talk about Romania versus Bosnia and Herzegovina in Bucharest. Now, I fully expected Romania to win this match. They had a decent Euro 2024 showing, and they're literally playing at home. So to me, this was a must-win game for the Romanians, and I fully expected them to secure all 3 points. But despite Romania dominating the match with 15 shots, 3 of them on target, and having 66% possession, they failed to make any of this domination count. While Bosnia, on the other hand, had scored their only shot on target in the 14th minute through Gigovic, and they held on to the lead for the entire 90, meaning Bosnia got the 1-0 win away from home against Romania and secured a massive 3 points. Damn, Romania, damn. Anyways, moving over to matchday 2, let's talk about Bosnia and Herzegovina versus Cyprus. And let's be honest, Bosnia are the much better team, and this was reflected on the scoreboard, with Demirovic scoring in the 22nd minute and Hadjinovic scoring in the 56th minute. And although Cyprus scored once too, it didn't matter, with Bosnia and Herzegovina securing all 3 points in this massive March window for them. While on the other hand, between San Marino and Romania, San Marino scored a goal. That's right, Zanoni scored for San Marino in the 67th minute in World Cup qualifying, and San Marino were in dreamland. Well, kind of, not really, because Romania scored 5 goals in total in this match, and they ended up winning 5-1. But hey, San Marino scored. We take those. Moving on to Group I now, we've got Norway in first place with 6 points. Maybe it's time we see Norway play in an international tournament with Holland and Odegaard, hopefully. Then in second place, we got Estonia with 3 points. Let's go Estonia. Then in third place, we got Israel with also 3 points, just a lower goal difference. Then Italy's in fourth place with 0 points, but that's just because they haven't played a game yet. And Moldova is in last with 0 points as expected. Talking about the first game, let's go over to Moldova versus Norway. And there isn't really much to go over, to be honest. Not a chance in hell Norway didn't dominate this match. And they did, with them winning 5-0. And look, even Holland scored in this match for his country too. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about Israel versus Estonia. Now Estonia would actually get the lead in this game thanks to Paskotsi, but due to an own goal from one of their players, Hein, in the 23rd minute, and then conceding somewhat late to Israel's Dasa in the 75th minute, Estonia ended up losing 2-1 to Israel, helping Israel secure all 3 points. Come on Estonia, the whole world is rooting for you in this game, man. Damn, the GOAT Ragnar Klavan would be disappointed. On to matchday 2 we go, and let's talk about Moldova versus Estonia first. Now this game actually became somewhat entertaining. Estonia would actually have a 2-goal lead within the first 30 minutes of the game, but then Moldova would actually get one back in the 67th minute thanks to Nicolescu. But Estonia would score one more 3 minutes later in the 70th minute thanks to Kate, before conceding an added time to Moldova again. Overall though, Estonia would win away from home 3-2, and this was a massive win for them. Now let's talk about Israel versus Norway, and Norway would do well in this game. They dominated the match, having 23 shots to Israel's 10, having 12 shots on target to Israel's 6, and had 56% possession of the ball. And they made all this possession count, with Moller Wolfe scoring in the 39th minute for Norway, before Abu Fani equalizing in the 55th minute. But then in the 59th minute, Sorloth, who's been having a great season for Atletico this year, scored 3 minutes later to put Norway back up. And then Alger was scored in the 65th minute, and then the inevitable Erling Haaland was scored in the 83rd minute to help Norway score 4 goals in this game. And although Israel would bring one back, Norway would still end up winning this match 4-2 away from home. Let's go Norway! Let's go! I'm proud of y'all for this result. And Israel? Anyways, let's swiftly move over to Group J, where we got North Macedonia actually currently on top of the group with 4 points. Wales is somehow in second place with 4 points, just because of 1 lower goal difference. Kazakhstan is in third place with 3 points. Belgium is in fourth, but that's just because they haven't played a game yet. And Liechtenstein are obviously in last place. Starting off with the first game of matchday 1 in this group, we got Liechtenstein versus North Macedonia. And let's just cut to the chase, man. North Macedonia won this game with ease, winning 3-0. And now over to the next game between Wales versus Kazakhstan. I mean, come on, we all knew that Wales was going to win. Even with Gareth Bale retiring some time back, they're still definitely way better than Kazakhstan, and Wales did end up winning this match 3-1. Kazakhstan were kind of close to qualifying for an international tournament with the 2024 Euros, and I just don't think they're ever going to get that close again, respectfully. On to match day 2 though, regarding Liechtenstein versus Kazakhstan. Even though I was just criticizing Kazakhstan, they're still a way better side than Liechtenstein, and beat them 2-0 with ease away from home. While North Macedonia versus Wales was certainly the more interesting matchup in this group, and despite Wales dominating the match with the more shots, the way more shots on target, and the way more possession, North Macedonia would actually score first. In what looked like the late winner, winner with Bojan Miovski scoring in the 90 plus first minute. But luckily, the man who battled through cancer, David Brooks, now saves his country in the 90 plus 6th minute, with him scoring the late equalizer to make sure Wales escaped North Macedonia with at least a point in these qualifiers. If Wales lost here, it would have been a massive drop of points, but at least they got one out of this game. Let's now move on to UEFA Group K, where we've got England obviously topping the group with 6 points. Albania is in second with 3 points. Shout out to Olipa though, we love her, or at least I do. Then in third place, we got Latvia with also 3 points, just a lower goal difference. Serbia are in fourth, but that's just because they haven't played a game yet. And Andorra are in dead last, obviously, with 0 points. And starting off with the first game between Andorra and Latvia, I mean, listen, Andorra is pretty bad, and I fully expected Latvia to get the win here. And they did, thanks to Sitz, who scored in the 58th minute. But I kind of expected Latvia to score more goals here, even though they were away from home. But listen, 3 points is 3 points. And now let's talk about the juiciest game in this group in the March window. We got England versus Albania. Now listen, Albania is not a bad team by any stretch of the imagination. So even with England playing at Wembley, it wasn't going to be easy for them to get the 3 points. Luckily for them, they have Miles Lewis-Skelly, who's enjoying himself a wonderful debut season. And he enjoyed himself a great England debut too, because in the first 20 minutes of it, he scored a great goal to put England ahead. Bro scored on his debut for England, man. That's something to really be proud of. I'm surprised he didn't get a red card though. Okay, no, I'm playing. I don't know why I made an Arsenal jab in an international video. My fault. Then, of course, in the 77th minute, the inevitable Harry Kane would also score for England, and the English would win this game 2-0 as expected. Moving on to match day 2, let's start with Albania versus Andorra. Like I said, Andorra is not good. So of course, Albania will win this game, and they did convincingly, slapping them up 3-0. So congrats to all the Albanians out there for this result. On to the next match between England versus Latvia. I mean, with England playing at home, we all knew they were going to get the victory here. The question was by how many goals? And the answer was 3, with Reece James finally scoring a goal for England after like 5 years with his amazing free kick. I can't lie. Bro didn't celebrate because he was afraid of injuring himself again with the knee slide. Then Kane, of course, scored in the 68th minute, and Eze would add another one in the 76th minute to help England win gigantically 3-0, as we all expected. Boring England, man. Give us some excitement, huh? But anyways, moving on to UEFA Group L now. We got the Czech Republic in first place with 6 points. Then in second place, we got Montenegro with also 6 points, just a lower goal difference. And third, we actually got Croatia, but that's because they haven't played a game yet. Faroe Islands are in fourth with 0 points, and Gibraltar obviously in dead last with 0 points and a -6 goal difference already. Let's just swiftly go on to the first game where we got Montenegro versus Gibraltar. And even though Gibraltar is absolutely booty cheeks, you wanna know something crazy? These guys scored first in the 13th minute thanks to Ben. Yeah, his name is Ben. Damn, imagine if Gibraltar actually won a qualifier away from home. That would have been wild, but they didn't, because Montenegro would score 3 goals and win 3-1. Thanks for ruining the fun, Montenegro. On to the next match, we got the Czech Republic versus Faroe Islands. And listen, I fully expected Czechia to get the W here, and they did, thanks to a 25th minute goal from Patrick Schick, who's enjoying himself a great season at Bayer Leverkusen right now. And although Faroe Islands made things scary with Vatamar equalizing late in the game in the 83rd minute, Schick is somebody who has loved scoring late goals this season for Leverkusen. So he did once again this time for Czech Republic, as he scored in the 85th minute to help his nation win 2-1 and collect all 3 points. Then over to match day 2, we got Gibraltar versus Czech Republic, and Gibraltar is just not good, man. So of course, Czech Republic steamrolled them 4-0, even though they were playing away from home. Then the next match between Montenegro and Faroe Islands, Montenegro dominated the match, with them having 20 shots at Faroe Islands as 4, having 5 shots on target at Faroe Islands as 1, and also having 67% of the possession. But despite this, it seemed like this game was going to end in a 0-0 stalemate. However, Evan Kuch came up clutch in the 90 plus 6 minute and scored a clutch goal for Montenegro to secure all 3 points and win this game late 1-0. And that's the story of how Montenegro has 6 points in this group so far. Now that's enough about UEFA World Cup qualifying. Let's now move on to the exciting and underrated Oceania World Cup qualifying, aka the OFC region. But before we talk about that, I would just like to remind y'all once again to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it and it means a lot, so thank you. And also, if you guys can, follow my Twitter and my Instagram, both at Nabuto, if you just want to hear my thoughts on football games, transfers, and overall, just to get to know me more. And also, make sure to join the Discord server, link in the description, and also follow me on Twitch. Live streams may be coming soon. So yeah, make sure to follow the socials, join the Discord server, and also like the video. That'd be much appreciated. Thank you. Back to topic now. Talking about Oceania's World Cup qualifying is actually pretty important, because with the World Cup being expanded to 48 teams, the OFC region will have 1 guaranteed spot at the World Cup, and that 1 spot will be decided in the March international window. So one of these guys has already made the World Cup now, hence why we have to cover this region. So let me remind y'all real quick on how the Oceania World Cup qualifying is structured. There was a first round in which the 4 worst national teams in the region played in a knockout tournament format in which Samoa won, which got them in a round 2 spot. Where in this second round of OFC qualifying, there's 2 groups of 4, and the top 2 teams of each group will advance to the 3rd round. So nobody will automatically qualify to the 2026 World Cup from the second round, just to make that clear. Then in the 3rd round, the 4 teams that advanced from the previous round will play in a 3-match knockout round in March 2025, and the winner of this would automatically qualify for the 2026 World Cup, while the runner-up, aka the finalists, would make it to the Interconfederation playoff. So now with the structure talk out of the way, let's talk about the ending of the second round of qualifying and where that leaves us in the 3rd round that took place in March. In Group A, New Caledonia wins the group with 7 points and advances to the 3rd round that took place this March, along with Fiji, who were in 2nd place with 5 points. And the teams that have been knocked out already were the Solomon Islands, who finished 3rd with 3 points, and Papua New Guinea, who finished with 1 point. While over Over in Group B, if it wasn't obvious enough, New Zealand easily topped the group with a total of 9 points, winning 3 games from 3 and having a plus 18 goal difference, while Tahiti finished in second place and also made the third round by getting 6 points. And then the teams knocked out already were Vanuatu with 3 points and Samoa, the team that qualified from the first round, finishing dead last with 0 points. And now for the third round, our semifinal matches took shape, where we had New Caledonia playing Tahiti, an interesting time for sure, and then New Zealand versus Fiji. And let's start this section off by talking about New Caledonia versus Tahiti. And although this matchup could be seen as even initially, the game did not play out this way. And in fact, New Caledonia were definitely the better team. From the jump in this match, New Caledonia were the team getting the better chances. And even though initially they weren't going in, it was only going to be a matter of time before they did. And in the second half, New Caledonia started scoring. Initially because of the 36-year-old Georges Hope Finepej, who scored from an amazing chip in the 50th minute to put his country up 1-0. Then in the 75th minute, Hope Finepej did the same thing again and decided to chip the keeper, but this time near the halfway line. And he somehow managed to score again to pretty much put this game to bed for New Caledonia against Tahiti. Louis Waie would make sure of this in the 90+ first minute thanks to his great goal to help New Caledonia win 3-0 and progress to the final of the OFC qualifying, where they would be just one game away from going to the 2026 World Cup. But before we talk about the final, we gotta talk about the other semi-final between New Zealand and Fiji. And if there's one thing you know about the OFC region in international football, it's this: there's not a chance in hell that New Zealand is gonna lose qualification to Fiji out of all teams, with all due respect. And they didn't, because instead, Chris Wood banged in a hat-trick within 60 minutes, Sarpreet Singh, my South Asian brethren, scored 2, and so did Bindon, Payne, and Barbarouses in the 73rd minute for New Zealand to absolutely cream pie Fiji 7-0. Yeah, this game was no contest, let's be honest. And here we are, the final of Oceania World Cup qualifying, where the winner will be going to the 2026 World Cup in North America, while the loser will advance to the Interconfederation playoff, where more likely than not, they'll be rinsed. So basically, you either win this game or you're not going to the World Cup in North America. It's as simple as that. And I know what y'all might be thinking. Nabuto, it's obviously going to be New Zealand going to the World Cup. Who the hell is New Caledonia? Well, you'd actually be surprised, because New Caledonia is probably New Zealand's biggest threat, and they actually played a pretty good game against them in this final. Starting off in the 12th minute, New Zealand would have a good chance to score, but the goalkeeper had a pretty simple stop in the end. Then in the 20th minute from a corner kick, New Caledonia somehow kept the ball from going in due to a defender hitting the ball off the line twice. What a chaotic set of events. Nottingham striker Chris Wood would also have a decent opportunity in the 32nd minute, but fluffed his shot completely, making it an easy start for the goalkeeper. New Caledonia would then start to get some chances for themselves, but they weren't that clinical if we're being honest. But New Caledonia did manage to keep New Zealand out of their net for the entire first half. That's an accomplishment within itself, but we all know how the story goes, because in the second half, New Zealand ran rampant. First in the 61st minute from a corner kick, thanks to Boxall, who headed the ball in. Then 5 minutes later, Barbarouses caught the New Caledonia keeper off his line when lacking and scored to make it a 2-0 lead. And then in the 80th minute, Elijah Just scores a good opportunity to make it 3-0 to New Zealand, and New Zealand are now confirmed to be going to the 2026 World Cup. So in this March international window, we now have Japan and New Zealand making the World Cup in North America. I'll see y'all in that summer. But anyways, this is everything that's happened in the March international window regarding the World Cup 2026 qualifiers. It's been pretty insane, right? I wasn't lying. But yeah, I hope this helped cover you guys on what's going on in World Cup qualifying at this current moment. And this was one long video. It's probably the longest video on my channel right now. So I hope you guys definitely got something out of this. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. And please be sure to follow my Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and join the Discord community. All the links are in my YouTube description. Last but not least, if you want to learn about one of the worst weeks of my life supporting Liverpool Football Club, you definitely want to check out this video right here. You won't regret it.